Okay. Borda, good morning. My name is Councillor Carl Lewis, and I have the pleasure today to chair this Planning, Taxi, Licensing and Rights of Way Committee meeting. And we'll go to the first item on the agenda, which is apologies. Over to you, Carol, for apologies, please.
Thank you, Chairman. If I do a roll call as well,
Yeah,
happy with
that's fine.
that. So we've got Councillor Carl Lewis,
Present.
Councillor Gareth D. Jones,
Present, but Chair, I will have to leave at 12:15. Apologies.
Councillor Tom Colbert,
Present.
Councillor Angela Davis,
Present.
Councillor Deb Edwards. Apologies from Councillor Les George, Councillor Hylwyn Hume,
Present.
Councillor Peter James,
Present.
Councillor Adrian Jones, Councillor Gareth E. Jones,
Present.
Councillor Karina Kenyon Wade,
Present.
Councillor Ian McIntosh,
Present.
Councillor Jeff Morgan,
Present.
Councillor Gareth Pugh. Councillor Gareth Pugh. I can see Councillor Gareth Pugh online, but
We'll come back to it.
yeah,
Sorry, yes, I'm here.
thank you. Councillor Edwin Roderick has sent apologies. Councillor Gwynfor Thomas, Councillor Elwyn Vaughan, Councillor Jonathan Wilkinson has sent apologies. Councillor Hugh Williams.
But Chair, can I say if the meeting goes beyond 1:30, I am obliged to go to another council-related meeting, so that's at 1:30.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, on to the second item of the agenda, which is minutes from the previous meeting, which are pages 5, 6, 7, and 8. Do I have someone to propose and second those minutes as a true record of what transpired, please?
Yes.
Thank you very much, Councillor Elwyn Vaughan. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hylwyn Hume. Thank you very much. On to declarations of interest. A, to receive any declarations of interest from members relating to items to be considered on the agenda.
Chair,
Yes.
I have an interest in item 4.6.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else?
Yes, Chair, I wish to declare an interest in item 4.3, the Bank Farm Aberharvest. I was not a member of the planning committee when this first came before the Community Council in September 2020. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hylwyn Hume. B, to receive members' requests that a record be made of their membership of town and community councils where discussion has taken place for matters for consideration of this committee. C, to receive declarations from members of the committee that they'll be acting as a local representative in respect to an individual application being considered by the committee. D, to note details on members of the county council who are not members of the committee who will be acting as a local representative in respect to an individual application being considered by the committee. I believe we do have councillors. We have councillors Peter Lewis, I believe. I'm not sure if Peter is able to signal that he's in the meeting, but we'll record him, I believe, as a local member. That's not a member of this committee. Okay, on to planning applications 4.1 updates. Has everyone received the updates and had time to read through them? It has the appeal notice in the back of them. If there isn't anyone that's had time to read them, please indicate now and we'll give you that allotted time. Okay, we can proceed. So, first application before us is application 21//1940/FUL residential development comprising 79 residential units, formation of vehicle access, roadways and other associated works, land east of Eichen Road, 100 Nod Wells. taking us through this application is Richard Edwards. Before I start, I'd like to welcome back Colin Edwards to the committee. As many of you have read in the minutes, I thanked him in the last meeting for all his hard work, and I welcome him back again today. So welcome back, Colin. Over to you, Richard.
The box on the screen, which laptop is that?
That's me. That's me. Oh,
It is that.
oh, sorry. You can see that box. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
Can everyone hear me?
Can anyone online hear Richard?
Yes.
So
Yes.
as mentioned, for us now is a application for residential development of 79 residential units. The application site is located within the settlement development boundary of Landry Dodwells, which is classified as a town within the local development plan. Here on the screen, the stars indicating the application site. Directly to the south of the site, you have the artificial turf pitch associated with Landry Dodwells High School. You have the high school to the southeast. You have existing playing fields to the east. Directly to the north of the site, you have phase 1 and 2 of the housing allocation, which this application also relates to. So phase 1 and 2 have been built out and they're currently occupied. This application site here relates to the rest of the housing allocation for phases 3, 4, and 5. You've got the existing development of the project to the northeast, and then you've got agricultural land to the west and Ithan Road, in which the application site will link onto to provide access. There are rights of way located to the east of the site, which run along the playing fields, and also to the north, which separates this phase and the phase that has been built out. So as mentioned, this site is part of housing allocation put forward within the LDP. As mentioned, phase 1 and 2, the northern thinner section has been built out and is currently occupied. This application relates to the southern element of it, which here is the site. As mentioned, the application relates to 79 dwellings. It's providing a mix of 1-bed walk-up flats, bungalows, adapted bungalows, 2-bed houses, 3-bed houses, and 4-bed houses. The whole allocation was for 122 dwellings. As I said, the 55 have been built out, so this is for the remaining element of that. Within the LDP, as mentioned, it's a housing allocated site. Policy H1 supports the development of residential dwellings within the settlement development boundary, which Landod is a town. It's wholly located within it, so it is considered that, given it's a housing development site, the principle is acceptable for the residential development before us. In respect of density, given it's a town, policy H4, the LDP has specific requirements with respect to the density for residential developments within towns. The application site relates to approximately 2.6 hectares. The density of 79 dwellings put forward is higher than that is required by policy H4, and which is deemed to be acceptable in the circumstances. The application, as I said, is for 79 dwellings. Given that it's Landod, there is a 30% affordable housing requirement that's required to be put forward for a residential development of this nature. The application is being put forward by Newydd Housing and RSL. They will be looking to provide 60 affordable houses on the development site, with 19 being open market. Therefore, the requirement that they're put forward is in excess of what is required by condition. So it's deemed acceptable. Of note that we can only secure the amount required by the condition, so 30% on site. As mentioned, as it's a housing association that's putting forward the development, there will be conditions attached to securing the 30%, but in respect of the excess, it's deemed acceptable because there was an RSL coming forward with those. So the affordable dwellings will be spread across the whole of the site, with the open market dwellings being 19 located on phases 4 and 5. So just some site context photos. This is the site at the moment. So I'm on the right of way with my back facing towards the high school, looking northwards. So it's just currently an agricultural field. This is further up the right of way, still looking northwards. You've got the existing phases 1 and 2 developments down here, and then you've got existing bungalows associated with Holcombe Drive on the project. And this is just looking down Eython Road with the site to my right. And this is also from Eython Road looking back towards the high school. So this is the general arrangement layout of the development. The colours indicated the phasing that they'll be providing development within. So it's a standard residential development layout. You've got the cul-de-sacs, you've got the main access road coming here off Eython Road, with all the dwellings laid out appropriately, with some informal areas of open space. Down in the lower section of the site adjacent to Eython Road is a large area of public open space that's been put forward. If I just skip to this one, sorry. So on site, there's going to be a leap play area put forward with equipment provided as well. That'll be secured by an appropriately worded condition, also along with the maintenance and aftercare and the phasing of when that is done to ensure that it is provided on site accordingly. Given that a player is being provided on site, there's no other financial contributions being sought in respect of this matter, as it's deemed to be acceptable and in accordance with the Fields and Trust standards as well. As mentioned, there's a range of housing types provided on site. Main access road cul-de-sacs with all the dwellings fed off from those. This slide here just indicates the phasing and the dwellings being put forward. I've got some. So here, there's some site aerial view makeups of how the site will look like. So as you can see, there's a range of dwellings provided across the whole of the site. You've got in public open space areas. It should be noted in the design, comments were raised initially in regards to privacy and overlooking, and that was the reason why the application was called in by the previous member at the time. The application has sought to provide bungalows into the top northern end of the site, adjacent to the existing Holcombe Drive, to mitigate any privacy overlooking concerns that were raised. The residential development seeks to mirror that was provided in phase 1 and 2, so the materials and all that are similar, are the same. So it'll just be a continuation of the existing development which has been built out on the north end of the development. The dwellings have been appropriately orientated on site. It's not deemed to be any privacy or amenity issues that would be raised in respect of the layout proposed. There was conversation with environmental health officers in respect of the artificial pitch next door and the lighting. However, information has been provided which is deemed to be acceptable in those circumstances, and it won't cause a detrimental impact on amenity of these properties being proposed. As mentioned, no financial contribution has been secured for this development, given that a fully equipped Leap play area is being provided on site. Also, a over provision of affordable housing is being provided. As I said, 30% of affordable housing will be secured by condition. However, more than that is being put forward and being operated by Newydd Housing. There's been no request from any other departments for a financial contribution to be secured against this residential development. Here's another layout of how the site will look. And just a couple of perspective photos as well for a bit further detail. In respect of highways, there has been extensive conversation between the agent and the highways officer in respect to the application. There has been amended details that have been provided. The outcome is that the application puts forward the appropriate levels of parking for the developments. There's not an under provision of parking in association with the dwellings on site. In respect of active travel, there are links provided to the rights of way from the development. So you've got the rights of way that runs the east of the site, which should be along the top here. So there's connections to that right of way, and also the right of way that's to the northern end, which dissects the housing allocation. So that has been put forward. There are a number of highway conditions that have also been recommended, which will be attached to the any permission in respect of parking, access, visibility, footpaths, and the finishing materials, along with engineering drawings. So it's deemed to be acceptable from a highways perspective, and subject to those conditions which will be attached to any grants or plan permission. In respect of ecology, there was a number of ecology reports submitted with the application. The measures and mitigation put forward in those reports are deemed to be acceptable, which will be secured by appropriately worded conditions attached to any granting of plan and permission. In respect of foul drainage, the application site proposes to connect to the mains sewer. In respect of riverway phosphates, there has been dialogue and consultation with NRW and Welsh Water in respect of this application. It has been put forward that granting conditions to be used in respect of this development, as in relation to the connection to the mains wastewater treatment plant, as long as they have a phosphate permit in place. So subject to the imposition of the Grampian condition attached to the plan permission, it's deemed to be acceptable in respect of this matter. The ecologist has undertaken HRA and an appropriate assessment, which has been reviewed by NRW with the condition recommended by them put forward. There is an element of cultural heritage in relation to the site, from which was evident on phase 1 and 2. So there'll be a general archaeology condition attached to the permission as well for any excavation works that are undertaken on the site. There was a couple of public comments raised on the application also by the town council in respect of the capacity of the development and facilities within Landing Wells, such as district capacity in schools, doctors, hospitals. But it should be noted that this application relates to a housing allocated site put forward in the LDP. So all those would have been considerations at the time of when the housing site was allocated. Comments were also raised in regards to renewable energy. Some of the dwellings are proposing to have solar panels on them. There has been an improvement in regards to building regulations and Part L, because I noticed it was raised about car charging points. Sorry, that's not, Part L, so the improvements in respect of dwellings and the minimum construction standards to improve the efficiency of dwellings when they are constructed. In respect of car charging points, as that was a matter was raised, There isn't a requirement for residential developments as this to provide specific car charging point infrastructure. But as you appreciate, residential dwellings, people with electric cars, they can charge those from their own properties if required. So my recommendation is one of conditional consent. There are a number of conditions as well that will be attached to the permission to secure an appropriate development put forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard. Over to members for discussion, please. Councillor Elwyn Vaughan, please.
Well, thank you, Chair, diolch yn fawr, and thank you, Richard, for that. Can I say, first of all, I think it's a refreshing application to have in front of us. It's in many ways, it looks to me well designed. It's taken on board the concerns of neighbours. It's already got a play area well designed in place. The parking issues have been resolved and allocated appropriately. And on top of that, we have 60 affordable homes over the initial allocation. I see therefore no reason why this shouldn't move forward and welcome the development, and therefore move that we the recommendation by the officer. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch, Councillor Elwyn Vaughan. Councillor Hugh Williams, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I sort of concur with Councillor Elwyn Vaughan, but can I ask for some clarification of Richard, please? Richard, on page 54 of your report, which is a comprehensive report, I've got to tell you, can I read this? The local planning authority has been advised by NRW that the permit for Llandrindod Wells wastewater treatment works has not been subject to an appropriate assessment under the habitat regulations by NRW. In the next page, it also says the Powys ecologists concluded that a likely significant defect on the River Wye SAC or its associated features could not be ruled out. Now, we mitigate that with appropriate conditions. Can you just assure me that the conditions which I've read include those appropriate conditions for the SAC? Hello?
Chair, if I may, I'll
Yes.
come back here. I think Richard struggled to hear Councillor Hugh. Thank you for the question, Councillor Williams. In terms, it's a bit of a breakthrough application in a way, this one, because of the issue around river sacs and nutrients, the phosphate.
Yes.
So this is a, as I say, it's on the cusp with this one. So we've had to put quite a lot of work into it. As it stands at the moment, the wastewater treatment works in Llandrindod. They do have phosphate stripping in place.
Yeah.
Those are due to be improved, and we've got certainty now that that work is to be undertaken by Dŵr Cymru Welsh Water. So we're going to see improvements happen between now and 2025. I don't think we've got a specific date, but I could be corrected on that. But that's the date of their 5-year annual maintenance programme. Aside from that, to get certainty under the habitat regulations for ourselves, because we are a competent authority, what we also need to see in place is an up-to-date environmental permit for those treatment works. The permit that's there at the moment is not up to date. I think they were last updated when we still had the Environment Agency with us, and that's some time ago now, when they became part of NRW. So to get the certainty, what we need is to see the works improved, and we've got certainty around that, and that's by Welsh Water. But we also need to see the environmental permit reviewed and issued again by NRW. That we expect to show that there can be compliance with the targets that have been set for the river around nutrients. And those targets fall in line, they have to fall in line with the targets over time have got tighter. They're set nationally. There's a approach that they're set to the Joint Nature Conservancy Council. So in working on this one, where we've got ourselves to is this position where we can put this Grampian condition, and we've got agreement from Natural Resources Wales, there's agreement from Welsh Water to that. A Grampian condition is a subject to type condition. So it's saying, provided those works are undertaken, and the environmental permit is updated to an acceptable standard, then the development will be acceptable in terms of its nutrient or phosphate addition. It will be dealt with, it will be mitigated. So that's where we've got to, and the appropriate assessment we've done is confirm that, being consulted with NRW, they're happy with it. So as I say, I'll go right back to the start. This is really a breakthrough. I think this is the first which may unlock others in time. The risk could always be on the developer, because if we grant permission, or the committee grants permission, the Grampian condition is still putting the onus on the developer to achieve this, and we want to see that. But it enables development, us to grant planning permission and for it to proceed. But there are some subject to things that have to happen: the upgrade works and a refreshed environmental permit. Okay.
Thank you, Peter.
Through the chair, can I come back on that, please?
Yes, certainly.
And I am minded to second this application. I haven't got an objection. But Peter, which of the conditions given to us covers what you've said there? And I'm happy if you're going to point me to it. Otherwise, is there a need for a reference or another condition? That's all I'm asking, really.
Richard's kindly dug it out for me. It's condition 29. So if you want me to quickly, no dwelling hereby approved should be connected to any means of foul disposal, nor occupied for human habitation until certification is submitted.
Yeah.
I'll stop reading if you want me to.
Yes, I've got it. Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I was looking at the number 18 and 19. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hugh. Councillor Gareth Jones, Vice Chair, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I very much concur with what Councillor Vaughan said at the beginning. A very well put together application. And personally, I'm very pleased to see that they have included the play area, which we'll recall hasn't always been the case previously. Can I just ask the officer, please, who's going to be responsible for the maintenance of this? That's the only question I've got on this.
Well done.
And who's it going to be handed over to in the future? Thank you.
Thank you. There are a couple of conditions that have been proposed on any grant of permission, which will secure the maintenance and aftercare of the play parks. That'll be up to the agent to put forward a suitable scheme with suitable measures and to ensure the longevity and maintenance of the play park. As I said, the application is being put forward by Newydd Housing. They'll be securing the affordable dwellings, so I presume an element of that would be on them, but that will all be detailed through discharge of condition applications in respect of the play park. So it's on there. It's up to the agent to put forward a suitable scheme to secure that going forward. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Chair.
Councillor Gareth Jones, Vice Chair. Councillor Howland-Hume, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. First of all, I want to commend this developer on putting forward an application whereby he is addressing a huge demand for accommodation in terms of 1 and 2 bedroom properties. So that is absolutely fantastic. We know there is a shortage, and that is the highest demand that we have in the county. Secondly, just to pick up on a point that Councillor Gareth raised then, living in a community where the community council is the beneficiary of a play park. It's 20 years old now. In the last 5 years, the community council have spent £25,000 on it, which is a very big spend for a small community council. From the pictures that you showed on your slide, I noticed it's wooden construction. Is there any way in which the uprights going into the ground can have a steel base going into the ground with the wood then on top, so that it's not wood going into the ground? I don't know if that can be conditioned in any way, but the longevity of the equipment is greatly increased if you put steel then wood on top.
The pictures put forward are indicative, like the construction standards, like they all be built to an appropriate standard level to ensure that they're safe and meet those requirements. I don't think a condition in respect to that would be.
I think we can do it.
Well, we could do it. Propose that.
The image in the bottom left-hand corner, it kind of looks as, you know, I know it's only an image, but it kind of looks as if that the uprights are on steel.
I'm sure they would want to ensure that it's appropriately constructed steels to make sure it lasts as long as possible. So there's less maintenance and requirement for there. If it doesn't last, it's going to cost them more, isn't it? So
Exactly. Yeah, very much so.
yeah,
All
I
right,
can't see an issue with that for the maintenance
But
of it.
thank you very much. And I'm very pleased to see that so many 1 and 2 bedroom properties are being developed as part of this development. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, councillor Howard Hume. Councillor Angela Davis, please.
Am I right? Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. I agree with everything that's already been said. It looks like a lovely development. Thank you, Richard. Your presentation has actually answered most of my questions, so that's great. But I have got, you did say early on in your presentation, I missed a word, but you said there's a higher property density than something, but this is acceptable under the circumstances. And I wonder, what are the circumstances?
Oh, it's just sorry, it's just the terminology. So policy H4 relates to density within the LDP. So within a town such as Landrod Wells, it's 27 plus dwellings per hectare that we do the calculation on. The 79 put forward, given the area, there's a couple more being provided kind of density, but it's a well-designed scheme. The site is capable of supporting 70.
They're not going to be squashed in.
Oh, no, like given
From the picture, it looks.
given what they're
nicely laid out.
proposing, the scale of the dwellings, they're all, I believe, below 115 square meters anyway. So it's a well-designed scheme in relation to the amount of dwellings put forward. So it's not deemed to detrimentally impact the character design of it. So yeah, it meets the density requirements as required by the LDP. There's just a couple more on there, but it's suitable given the design and the layout being proposed.
Brilliant. Excellent. So the other thing, obviously, I'm quite new to planning, and this is the biggest planning application we've had, but there are 29 conditions. We haven't had, or I've not been involved in one that's had that many. Is that normal for a planning a building site of this size? Yeah, so that's not unusual. So my question really is, how do you enforce them? What happens if this is built and some of those conditions aren't met? What's the redress?
Well, the conditions proposed, there are timings on this. Some of them are compliance conditions. I'm positive that the developer agent will ensure that the information is submitted appropriately to be discharged when it is required. We do have enforcement element within planning, but we would look to the conditions are clearly laid out. They're telling them what they need to do, when they need to be done. For example, the leap play area condition is a time frame on that. I would be expecting that they do comply with those conditions as they're on there. If not, there are discussions that we can have with them to ensure it's come forward. But I got no doubt that, well, I'd be hopeful that they do comply with them and they bring it forward suitably as per the permission and the conditions relate to.
I mean, I would agree with that. We'd be hopeful, but I'm just wondering generally, if not, you know, when there are conditions.
Most conditions are carried out, as Richard said, most conditions are carried out as the development moves on. So building control would be ticking off the list, and obviously
So it would be stopped at some point if something hasn't.
and there's a
met, right.
discharge of conditions as well. So there's only very few that are left to the very end. So I'll bring Peter in here, might explain a little bit more.
Yeah, the conditions are there for a reason, aren't they? They're there to secure something and make sure that something happens. So most of them can be met. Developers might encounter problems meeting some of them in due course. If they did, they can come back, as Richard said, and talk to us about those. And if there's nothing sort of substantial or problematic, there are ways of adjusting those conditions as well. Some of the conditions, like we've just read out, the sort of prior to occupation one, that big one around foul drainage, that has to be there. Otherwise, we might be taking some form of enforcement action. And non-compliance of a condition, excuse the language, equals a breach of condition. And we can serve notices around breaches of condition. So there are powers available to us to make sure the conditions are met. Or they can be varied if there's legitimate and good reason to do so.
So really what you said, the relationship between the developer, whatever it is, and the council continues through the whole building process. So that's.
We're a development management service, and that sort of follows through.
Yeah.
So as some of these conditions, as we said, have that prior to commencement part to them, and that does mean prior to commencement, they should be discharging before they start on site. So that conversation, communication carries on really with the developer.
Okay.
And if people are unhappy locally, they can report things to us and we'll investigate and determine whether any action is necessary or what action is necessary.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Angela Davis. Councillor Gareth E. Jones, please.
Thank you, Chair. Again, I think like other members, I'm in support of this application, but I have got a couple of questions for Richard, if that's okay. You mentioned that some of the properties will have solar panels. Do you know what percentage that's going to be, and why isn't all the houses going to have solar panels? And are they going to use any other green energy such as air source heat pumps?
I haven't got a figure, apologies. There are drawings that have been provided with the application out on the public website. There was quite a lot of documentation, so I just tried to pick out the more visually ones you can see, but there are drawings that do indicate solar panels on them. Some of the dwellings that aren't affordable won't have PD rights removed from them, and there are permitted development rights which will allow solar panels to be erected on those dwellings if the residents see fit. So there is possibilities for that, for further enhancements in respect of renewable energy should the residents see fit as well.
The heating systems will be.
Pardon?
The heating systems, will they be gas or air source heat pumps?
I would have to clarify the heating systems that have been used.
Can I ask one further question? This may be for Peter rather than for Richard. I noticed in your report there's been no comment from school services. On my calculations, I think phases 1, 2, and these 3 phases will bring around 40 pupils into the school estate. My understanding, my thinking, this will be in the Trevornan catchment area, although I know there's 2 primary schools. And from my understanding, Trevornan is at or close to capacity. I'm just wondering what size development would officers from planning committee have direct discussions with officers in the school service?
Peter, do you want to answer that one?
School service were consulted on the application. No response in respect to that was provided. The phase that's been built out next to it, phase 1 and 2, I don't believe that had a school contribution secured on it.
Perhaps I'm not asking my question
I think you
properly.
were asking
I'm just
what
wondering
would
if
trigger.
whether there's any face-to-face verbal communication between officers of the 2 services to discuss individual.
Yeah, not sure if you had conversations specifically on this one, Richard. We've consulted them.
Yeah.
But obviously had no feedback. Got no problem with talking to them. I think the sort of planning rules we've got on this they're in the planning obligations supplementary planning guidance that we've got, which sets out the requirements. I think if we push too hard, what we're doing is we end up asking for too much, and it takes us into viability issues as well. I don't think we've got there with this one. What we've got is quite a lot of affordable housing coming out of this, so there's some big gains. If we start asking for too much, we make a scheme difficult. I'm probably not answering by the look of your face exactly what you want me to.
Well, no, you are answering, because in the previous slide, this was one of my responsibility areas around section 106s in schools. And I fully understand that you then got to take account of the affordable housing issues, etc. My concern is that the service hasn't come back at all to you to say, no, we don't want any consideration, or we do wish you to take some consideration.
It's at the end of the day, they've had the opportunity to respond to us, and I don't know the specific reason why they haven't, unless Richard does. No. So they've had opportunity to come in. and seek contributions. If they had done so, as I said, we'd then be in that process of looking at the viability of the site. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gareth E. Jones. I'll just go back to Councillor Hugh Williams. Councillor Hugh, are you happy? You said you were minded to second it. Are you happy to second the application?
Chair, I am happy to second it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hugh. Okay, as there are no other members wishing to speak, I'll put it to the vote. It'll be a verbal vote on this one, please, members. It has been proposed and duly seconded to go along with the officer's recommendation, which is one of conditional consent. Those members wishing to go along with that, please indicate when Carol calls your name. Before we do so, Councillor Peter James, please.
Just ask a question on environmental.
Your microphone, Councillor Peter.
Can I just ask a question on the environmental issues?
Yes, certainly.
On the actual tree planting and what species is going to be used, because there seems to be quite a lot of trees being put on that site. And certain trees do carry berries, and I'm thinking there's quite a lot of houses there for families. And are they sort of species that are acceptable for the play area that's been put there as well? Right, sorry. The trees that have been put on the site for planting, there is quite a few put around the actual play area as well. And being that there's children there, what sort of species they are? Because if they're carrying berries, young tots could actually pick up the berries and pop them in their mouths. I'm just interested what species of trees have been.
I haven't got the exact species detail, but there is landscaping plans that have been put forward. We do look to secure native species planting in respect of trees, and that as part of plan applications going forward. I'd have to check through the details to see the exact.
Sure, that will be monitored throughout. That will be monitored.
Yes, so there's a landscaping plan which details all the landscaping and tree planting, hedgerow planting, and everything that will be associated with the development. That's been reviewed by the colleges to be deemed to be acceptable from their perspective. So yeah, from an ecological standpoint, the species, the density, the mix of everything put forward for that site is acceptable from our ecological point of view. And it does provide biodiversity enhancements in respect of it, the fruiting of the trees, and that's not something I've encountered before as to impact on like children in the play area and that, to be honest.
Because that can play quite a big part on maintenance as well, can't it? You know, for trimming and everything else, especially on quite a site that is all housing and everything else.
Yeah.
And is there anything for wildlife been put in place as well, as in sort of bird boxes around there?
Yeah, so as part of plan applications forwards, you probably know some from now, we do seek biodiversity enhancements for all developments. So there is, as I said, there's additional planting being provided on site native species. There are a number of ecology reports that were put forward in support of the application, which have been reviewed by the ecologists with the mitigation measures and that's sought to be secured by condition. Bird boxes, bat boxes, and the like will be provided on site. Just checking if they got the. So yeah, there are biodiversity enhancements, so there'll be a positive gain of the site through the development in respect to biodiversity.
Okay, going back to the vote, please indicate, members, which way you'd like to go with this when Carol calls your name out.
Thank you, Chair. So Councillor Carl Lewis.
4.
Councillor Gareth D. Jones.
Vice Chair. We'll come back.
Yeah. Councillor Tom Colbert.
4.
Councillor Angela Davis. 4. Councillor Deb Edwards, and she did join us before we started this application. We checked. Councillor Deb Edwards.
4.
Councillor Harwin Hume.
Four.
Councillor Peter James.
Four.
Councillor Adrian Jones.
Four.
Councillor Gareth E. Jones.
4,
Councillor Karina Kenyon Wade.
4.
Ian McIntosh.
4.
Councillor Jeff Morgan. 4. Councillor Gareth Pugh.
4.
Councillor Gwynfor Thomas. 4. Councillor Elwyn Vaughan.
Or
Councillor Hugh Williams.
4.
We're going back to Councillor Gareth E. Williams.
Is indicated in the chat there, Carol, but he's for the application.
I can see that, so thank you, Chair. So that's everybody for.
Excellent. That obviously meets with the officer's recommendation. Thank you. Okay, on to the next application.
Need to bring in speakers.
Rightio, before we proceed, we'll bring in the speakers. Thank you, Carol.
Richard Amy first.
Okay.
Chair, I shall leave now. I shall leave the chamber.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Howland Hume.
Richard Amy is connecting. Check.
Okay. Hello, Mr. Amy. Are you present? Mr. Amy?
Sorry, I was just unmuting my microphone.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, if you can remain on mute and I'll bring you into the meeting and you'll be able to speak then.
Thank you.
Bring in Jenny Lloyd.
Hello, Jenny Lloyd. Hello, Jenny Lloyd. If you could unmute Jenny Lloyd and just indicate that you are in the meeting, please.
Hello, can I say, I know Jenny Lloyd is waiting to enter the meeting. She may be outside with a dog for a second.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Amy, for that clarification. Okay, we'll. Hello. Hello, Jenny Lloyd.
Hello, yeah, hi, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. My name is Councillor Carlos and I'm chairing the meeting today. And like I said to Mr. Amy, I will bring you in momentarily once we've heard the introduction from the officer. If you could remain on mute and after you've spoken, if you both could remain on mute as well. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, ready to proceed on to the next application, which is 20/1122/FUL, erection of livestock building for straw-based pig rearing and associated feed bin, standing landscaping and drainage attenuation pond, Bank Farm, Aberhavis. Taking us through this application is Gemma Buffton, Principal Planning Officer. Over to you, Gemma.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just to give a brief run through of the proposed siting initially of the application site. So circled in yellow with the circle near the top of the screen is the application site. You can see to the bottom right is the settlement of Newtown, approximately 2.8 kilometres away. And then to the bottom left-hand side, you've got Aberhavis, which is approximately about 1.8 kilometres from the application site. So this then is just a closer image of the application site itself indicated. You can see directly to the left-hand side, there's a cluster of farm buildings kind of indicated in white. That is Bank Farm, the main holding for the unit. Running to the right-hand side then of the application site, you can see there's a white road that runs from the south almost to the northeast of the application site, not northeast, sorry, to the right-hand side of the application site. That is the county highway, the C2063. And you'll note within my update report, this is where the proposed access will be coming from, and it is a new access. Apologies for the error in my previous report. And then you can see just general in the surrounding area, you can see that there is a cluster of existing farm holdings and residential properties which typically surround the application site. This then includes, or just shows, the proposed location plan. So to the left-hand side, you can see there, that's Bank Farm, the cluster of existing agricultural buildings and farmhouse associated with the unit. Indicated in red then is the application site where we have the proposed building with then the new access which joins directly onto that county classified C highway to the right-hand side of the screen. Just to bring members' attentions here, within my report, I did refer to that a rural enterprise has also since been granted for Bank Farm, the holding, and just to indicate that is the field to the slightly, well, directly, I suppose, from this angle to the north, kind of west, shall we say, from looking at the screen. You can see that green line, it's directly just above that. So just to indicate that there is a property coming closer to the proposed unit also. So this then just includes a block plan of the buildings. You can see there in the darker shade of grey is the proposed building, including the manure store, which is included within that structure. Then we have the provision of a hard surface surrounding it, which is obviously suitable for a turning area, etc., of the vehicles. And then we have the access road to the right-hand side of the screen. I'll pause there for speakers. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Gemma. Over to our first speaker, which is Mr. Richard Amy. Mr. Richard Amy, you have 8 minutes, but I believe that you'll be reading out a statement from Patrick Beck. So what I will do, if that's okay with you, I'll hear your introduction, I hear your statement that you're reading out, then we'll go to Jenny Lloyd and we'll come back to you for Patrick Beck's statement that you're going to read out. So over to you, Mr. Amy, please.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak at this meeting. I'm retired now, but before I retired a couple of years ago, I was a senior software engineer, and the software I worked on for over 25 years was land surveying and GIS collection software. This software is used by many large organisations, including Ordnance Survey in Northern Ireland. In fact, my last programming work was writing algorithms for checking and correction of data collected by Ordnance Survey. I am very familiar with digital terrain models, DTMs, which are used to recreate landscape topographies in digital form for use by computer software. In the odour and ammonia reports provided by the applicant's agent, DTMs are used to calculate the dispersion of odour and ammonia emanating from the pig rearing unit. My concern is with the accuracy of these digital models, given the very complex, irregular terrain in this region, and therefore the accuracy of the results presented. Digital terrain models are only as good as the data which is used to create them. The model is constructed from a grid of elevation points, and the accuracy of the model depends on the density of the grid. In Mr. Pick's design and access statement, he correctly describes that the site sits in an undulating landform of hills and valleys. In fact, it is very undulating. Such a landscape requires a high density of elevation points to create an accurate landscape model. For the digital terrain models used in this application, elevation data from Ordnance Survey has been used. Ordnance Survey offers a free elevation grid where reference points are placed 50 metres apart, and the odour and ammonia reports state that the models have been made using the elevation data from the source. And it is worth actually noting that Ordnance Survey do offer, but you have to pay for it, an elevation grid that's the points are placed 5 metres apart for high accuracy. Anyway, there's a problem here with this elevation data, this 50-metre elevation data. The odour report covers a 10-kilometre by 10-kilometre grid with 64 sample points over a 10-kilometre length. This gives a total number of elevation points over this 100 square kilometre area, which is 38.6 square miles, of 4,096 elevations. This also means that the spacing between the elevation points is nearly 159 metres, not the 150 metres described in the report. Since the Ordnance Survey data is supplied on a 50-metre grid, this means that virtually none of the points used in the model coincide with an Ordnance Survey elevation point. So most elevation values will have to be interpolated from adjacent points, which lowers the elevation accuracy. More importantly, if the model had used the Ordnance Survey elevation data at its original density, then the model would have had 40,401 reference points rather than the 4,096 points in their model and no interpolation. So to summarise, the ODA terrain model uses only 10% of the available elevation data and with most elevation points interpolated, so therefore will be an extremely inaccurate representation of the actual undulating landform of hills and valleys. The ammonia report is even worse. In that topography model, the 64 by 64 point grid is spread over a 12 kilometre by 12 kilometre area, which is 55.5 square miles. The report claims that this gives a 108 metre horizontal resolution, but in fact the actual horizontal resolution is over 190 metres. Worse still, like the ODA model, this gives a total of 4,096 elevation points, but if they had used the Ordnance Survey elevation data as supplied, they would have had 58,081 elevation points, and again, no interpolation. So in the ammonia model, they are only using 7% of the available elevation data to create their model. If the landscape was mainly flat and even, then possibly these models could be considered adequate. But as already mentioned, the landscape in this area is very irregular, so requires a dense grid of elevation points. Since modern computers can easily handle large data sets and the Ordnance Survey 50-metre data is freely available, there is no logical reason to produce these very poor digital terrain models, which will not be close to reproducing this sort of undulating topography. The ODA and ammonia report should therefore be ignored as they are giving misleading data. Another point I would like to make is about accuracy of information provided in the design and access statement. The final paragraph of the design and access statement deals with community safety and states the application site is not open to the public and the site is not accessible by public rights of way. If, however, you look at the Powys County Council public rights of way map, which is available online, this clearly shows a public right of way which extends to the pig rearing unit site. So, incorrect information. Earlier in the same document, it states the site sits close by existing buildings in agricultural use. Again, incorrect information. If statements are made in these documents, they should be accurate to allow planning decisions to be based on factual information. Finally, I would like to comment on behalf of people who have contacted me. I am a county councillor on, I'm a community councillor on Aberhavis Community Council. And it is important to state that I am not commenting today on behalf of the Community Council, but as a parish resident. It is a fact, however, that in my role as a councillor, I do get contacted by local residents concerning planning applications which trouble them. In the past, I've never been contacted by more than one resident concerning any planning application, but for this application, I was contacted by 8 people, which is a measure of how concerned people are about the effects on their lives. To be fair, 2 of the people who contacted me were not parish residents and their concerns were for animal welfare alone, so are not relevant to this planning meeting. The other 6 people, however, all lived close enough to the proposed development to be affected by it. All were concerned about the impact of the odour on them and the use of the road by large articulated lorries. One contact was from a family living about 400 metres from the proposed building and who have 4 children who play outside a lot in the summer. The parent was very concerned about the likely smell and fly infestations from the unit, which could possibly spread diseases. Another resident was concerned about the original muck spreading plan, as his home has no mains water supply and his water well lies close to and downhill from one of the proposed spreading sites. For their welfare, I would request that if this application is approved, it is made conditional that the pig manure. Yep, for their welfare, I would request that if this application is approved, it is made conditional that the pig manure is not spread on the farm for the life of the enterprise. And also, if the application is approved, it should require the building to be sited with the other agricultural buildings near the farmhouse, not at its current proposed location close to local residents. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Amy. We'll go to our second speaker, which is Jenny Lloyd, please.
Morning, can you still hear me?
Yes, we can, Jenny. You have 8 minutes and you may begin when you're ready.
Lovely, thank you very much. Hello everyone, my name is Jenny Lloyd. I live less than half a mile from the proposed development. I was born here and have lived here most of my life. My parents farmed here and we kept sheep, poultry and pigs, so I know pigs. Both my maternal and paternal grandparents farmed in Aberhavis, but within 2 miles of my home. So this is an area which is very important and very special to me. I'm in no way, therefore, opposed to farming, and I believe we really do need to support our small traditional farms. I understand the need for farm diversification. Farming has always changed, and I understand diversification is the right of any landowner, but with rights come responsibilities, and therefore any change should not impact negatively on the local area and especially on the quality of life and safety of other residents. I therefore object to this planning application on many levels, but I will concentrate on the access road. I'm aware highways have given approval depending on many preconditions. I would like to add to their concern as someone who uses this road on a daily basis to walk, cycle and drive. In the original plan, moving to and from the farm was via Bryn Lane. For unexplained reasons, this changed to Church Lane. The 2-kilometre road from Aberhavis Church to the site is a very narrow single-track road with a maximum width of 2.5 metres, with steep sections around tight bends. Much of the route has steep verges on either side, allowing no room for vehicles to manoeuvre past each other. Sorry, I'm just going to let my dog out. Sorry, to pass each other. As I said, yes, the lorries going to and from this site, many will be HGVs, which will be 16.5 metres in length, weighing up to 44 tonnes when laden. There will be approximately 70 to 80 trips per year in all weathers, meaning an additional journey of 150 journeys along this road each year. This road is already in a very, very poor state of repair, and continuous use by this high volume of heavy lorries will in a short time render this road almost impassable by normal cars. There are limited places now for vehicles to pass. The drivers would have to reverse long distances around tight bends and over the brow of hills. I know highways have stated that 3 passing bays must be built, but this would still leave long, dangerous stretches where drivers would have to reverse. Local hauliers have confirmed that only their most experienced drivers who are totally familiar with the road are allowed to use this route, and only when absolutely necessary. This will not be the case for drivers coming to the site from some distance away. They will be totally unfamiliar with this road and under time pressure. This is a serious accident just waiting to happen. As I've said, the road is a very popular walking, running and cycling route, and a well-known walking route, the 7-way, goes along this road for about 400 metres. This is always busy with groups of walkers throughout the year, many of whom are quite mature. They would have to climb up steep verges in order to avoid these enormous lorries, incredibly dangerous. When there is ice or snow on the road, this becomes a hazardous route as the council do not grit it as it is a minor road. But due to the even steeper hills along Bryn Lane, this is often the only route for locals to access Newtown. More critically, it is the only way emergency services can access properties here. And should an HGV of this size become stuck in winter weather, it would take several hours to be recovered. During this time, no emergency vehicle could access the area, leaving local residents at great risk. So in view of all the problems linked to this application, and I will just conclude them as being serious risk to road users, the seriously detrimental impact on the quality of life for those nearby residents, especially a family of young children, due to the smell, noise and air pollution, The fact that the location contravenes Powys Local Development Plan and Technical Advice Notice 6, and also that the location will have a profoundly negative impact on this very special little area. The likely damage to the precious plants of the nearby site of special scientific interest, the inaccuracy of much of the data presented, and the totally unsustainable nature of the project with so many long journeys in heavy trucks to and from this site. So, in conclusion, as a result of the combination of these issues, we, the opponents, who number over 100, have sought legal advice, and should this development be permitted, we have been advised we have a very strong case to look to a judicial review, which we would have no hesitation in doing so, should this application be approved. Thank you all very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Jenny Lloyd. I'll come back now to Mr. Amy to read out a statement from Patrick Beck. So back to you, Mr. Amy.
Hello, thank you. Pat Beck isn't actually in the UK at the moment, which is why he's asked me to read the statement. And what he's written is, the bottom line is that this development does not comply with LDP policy E6 or TAN 6. For this reason, I believe it should be added to the reasons for refusal of planning permission. In explanation, the proposed building is not within the existing curtilage of Bank Farm, and this is not compliant with council policy. LDP policy E6 states the construction of new or conversions of existing buildings that form part of the proposal lie within or immediately adjacent to the existing farm building complex. TAN 6 Annex 14 states new buildings should normally form part of a group rather than stand in isolation. Quoting from the design and access statement, the proposed building has been sited to southeast of the farmstead at Bank Farm. The location of the development has been selected due to access requirements as the farm road up to Bank Farm is steep and it is not possible to access the farmstead with an articulated HGV. No evidence has been provided to support this claim. The road has a similar elevation profile to the original proposed access route of Bryn Lane and the new proposed route of Church Lane. The road to Bank Farm currently provides good enough access for the applicant to move and store heavy agricultural machinery at the farm. The post office deliver mail to the farm, and if the road were too steep, they would not allow their staff to drive up it. If the building was built adjoining the existing agricultural buildings, it would be further away from neighbourhood dwelling houses. There are several houses within 400 metres of the current site. Moving the unit would reduce the pollution experienced at these dwellings. It would also significantly reduce the visual impact of the development, particularly from the 7-way national footpath that passes close to the development. Moving the development would ensure that it was compliant with LDP policy E6 and TAN 6. A quote from Peter Morris on the 28th of July 2020, the LDP is important when it comes to determining planning applications. The legislation requires all planning authorities to determine applications in line with the development plan. I raised this objection with the agent on the 28th of June 2020, and he has not provided any evidence that supports his claim that the road is too steep. In summary, this proposed development is in the wrong position and is not compliant with the LDP. Thank you. That's what he wrote.
Thank you very much, Mr. Amy, for reading that statement out. Mr. Ian Peck, the agent, has decided not to respond, but if he had done, he would have the combined time of 24 minutes. So that concludes our speakers. I'll hand back now to Gemma to take us to her recommendation. Over to you, Gemma.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the speakers. I'll just run through the remaining part of my presentation. So this is the proposed building itself. So you can see it forms a covered manure store. If you look at the block plan to the right hand side, which includes the manure store within or under, shall we say, the structure. So the building measures approximately in total 80 metres, 15.5 metres in width, and reaches a height of 7.6 metres. The walls are typically mass concrete to the lower level. The darker green shade areas are then slider curtains, which will go up and down depending on to regulate really the temperature within the unit itself, with then a fibre cement roof. This then shows just another block plan, but it does indicate that then directly to the top side, you can see here, there will be areas of native tree and shrub planting to the directly, I suppose, south of the application, the building as seen on this plan. There is a mature hedgerow and trees which will be retained, and I have got some photos which will indicate that as well. So as was discussed and raised within the public speaking, there are concerns about the highway network serving the site. So access, as you can see here, is from the Aberhavisp road to the south of the site, or south from this plan. And what is proposed, I think I've got a better plan, initially is a new access, which is shown here. And then also as part of the scheme, there is some localised widening on bends which approach the site, and as we heard as part of the public speakers, there will be 3 passing bays also proposed along this length, which is to be agreed at a later date and recommended for condition by the highway officer, and that did also include some improvements to the access onto that Aberhavisp road. On that basis, the highway officer did confirm that subject to tight restrictions in terms of the conditions, they had no objections to the proposed development. So I'll go through some photos now just of the application site. Now to the left-hand side of the screen, if you can see my cursor, I think on the screen, you can see there is a farm holding which kind of sits on the top of that skyline. That is Bank Farm and the existing holding. Now where the proposed building is to go, if we head, I suppose, right from that holding, you can see there is a field. That is where the proposed now residential rural enterprise dwelling is to be proposed. And then if you go one field south, you can see there is a field kind of in a bit of a natural dip. You can see there, you can see there's two big trees. The shed is to propose to go into that field in that location. So this is taken from that county highway. That just is another photo, just show then just on a wider kind of view, you can see that there is some wider planting within the landscape, and again that Bank Farm which sits on that skyline there. So if you go to the application then site itself, you can see to the right hand side on the screen, those are the trees referred to. So the proposed building is to run, I suppose this is as you enter the site, so it will run parallel to that hedgerow to the right hand side of your screen. If I just turn a little bit, you can see there that there is an existing hedgerow which is to be retained. And then if I go then the other way, it's just to show that the topography of the land in that area does then rise behind the building. So the building will very much be sat at a lower level. It won't be on that skyline, and there is a natural hollow in the landscape to where the building will be accommodated. This is then taken from the top of the private access or the road to Bank Farm itself. So you can just see here from this photo, hopefully, the sort of land levels that we are looking at, and you can see how the building will then be directly located in this area here. So you can see the land either side of the proposed building does rise either direction. So it will form in that natural hollow. So with the additional landscaping as discussed, it is considered, whilst slightly detached, there is to be new buildings in terms of rural enterprise dwelling brought closer to this proposal. But also given the siting, it is considered to be acceptable in that location. Just to raise some of the points that were brought up in the public representations before I go on to the final matter for discussion. I know concerns were raised about the level of or how the survey work was completed. I can confirm that our environmental officer or health officer did come back in just August, I think this year, just to clarify matters, and he was satisfied with the survey level undertaken and completed at the site. I would say that following those survey works completed, the scheme has been amended. So, for example, as was also raised, now there will be no manure spread on land. That will all be exported off-site. Noise levels were predicted to be 28 decibels from the application site, which is way below the WHO level for sleep nuisance, which I think is at 35 decibels. So we're dealing with 28 in this instance. And given the officer stated that all manure is now to be exported off-site, they do consider that the levels of odour for neighbouring properties is also to be below those guidelines. The environmental health officer therefore was satisfied that all matters from their side had been resolved and they had no objection to the proposed scheme. So on the screen before you here, there is a black dot, sorry, to the bottom of the side of the screen. That is the application site. And then to the directly north of it, we have got the Gregynnog Triple SI, which you'll note within the report is of reason of objection from National Resources Wales. So officers probably, members even, sorry, will be aware that obviously during the report, new data was completed, I suppose, during the life of the application. Unfortunately, that showed that from these new data's concluded that the Gregynnog Triple SI critical levels are currently being exceeded. Now that means that with the proposed development, which is proposing to contribute 0.7% to that critical level, it would only further increase or the negative impact on that Triple SI. The Gregynnog Triple SI is known to be one of the most important parklands within Powys for lichen, and therefore it has been concluded that given this application would contribute to that critical level, which is already in exceedance, unfortunately it does provide evidence that this development by contributing ammonia would only further reduce the extent, condition and structure of that Triple SI. As another point to this, whilst this development would also contribute, whilst no cumulative surveys have been submitted as from the applicant or the agent in this instance, there has been recorded to be 2 other developments which have been approved, which were kind of done in that interim period, shall we say. And that has proven that if we took him on board those developments on top of this proposed development, the critical level for that Triple SI would be exceeded by more than 50%. And NRW have confirmed that this would cause a significant adverse effect on the features of that Triple SI. That then leads, unfortunately, to my recommendation that on that basis, and given national and local policy, which strives to protect and enhance these protected sites, that the recommendation is one of refusal. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gemma. Over to members now for discussion. Councillor Gwynfor Thomas, please.
Thank you, Chair. It's one of these difficult ones, isn't it? Where everything has got it going for it, boosting the economy, boosting agriculture, boosting a family, and yet we have this issue of the environment. I have a certain sympathy for this family because this was submitted in 2020 when they would have complied with the legislation. And I just want some clarification on that, on the fact that they submitted when they complied with the legislation, and the timescale, for whatever reason, has come to this point today where they don't meet with the legislation. So just clarity on that, really, that because they submitted when they complied with the legislation, does that make the application valid?
Okay.
Thank you for your comments. So yeah, it is the unfortunate circumstances that yes, if it was the application was all okay when it was submitted, we wouldn't probably with this recommendation before us today. Unfortunately, there was other problems with the application, shall we say, material considerations that weren't resolved and weren't submitted up front. So unfortunately, that has led to a delay in the determination. However, in terms of your query, we have to, as determining bodies, consider applications with the latest guidance and data put before us today. So whilst we appreciate that obviously it was submitted pre, we have in the interim had these updated surveys completed or done. So we have to consider on that basis. It's the same, I suppose, as an example, the phosphate issue. As soon as that was introduced or confirmed, even those applications that were pending in the system, unfortunately, we do have to consider it in line with that current data.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Gwynfor-Thomas. Councillor Adrian Jones, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, a point Gwynfor's brought up is in my thoughts as well. I would like to support this application in its current form. We are facing a food security problem in the UK because of real problems. New regulations from the Welsh Government on manure storage and spreading are predicted to make matters worse because farmers will probably have to reduce livestock numbers to reach goals. If these regulations work, ammonia levels from agriculture in Wales will decrease, but at a cost to reduced food production. I feel concerned for the applicants because the goalposts keep changing for their plan. As mentioned before, back in 2020, the application may well have been approved if the manure disposal plan they are proposing now was put forward then. This unit could be up and running right at this moment. It is a welfare-friendly application which consumers want.
I have to stop you there, Councillor Adrian. You
Yep.
can't read from a statement. It's
Okay.
got to be
It's okay, sorry. It's welfare-friendly units which consumers want. And ironically, if it was an intensive pig unit with ammonia scrubbers, etc., it would probably reach the goals that are needed now. So my thoughts are that with the new legislations coming in for agriculture, which will reduce ammonia levels, and the move to electric cars, because we all know they've got cars at the moment to produce ammonia through catalytic converters, the background levels of ammonia in the whole country should surely reduce. In that case, the level of ammonia production from this unit would not cause the site of scientific interest to reach its critical level, surely. So with this in mind, I would like to support this application. Thank you.
okay. Thank you very much, Councillor Adrian Jones. Councillor Jeff Morgan.
Hi, I'd just like to ask Gemma, you're happy with everything else besides the ammonia? Yes. But yeah, well, on this map here now, where the proposed site is the SSI below or above in height?
Oh, it's height.
Would you know, or?
I don't know the ground levels specifically, I'm afraid, no, but NRW have confirmed that there would be a connectivity to either site to contribute.
And a couple of the people related to a proposed dwelling being the closest one, is there actually a comment off the ones with the proposed dwelling? Are they opposed to it?
So they're part of the holding, they
They
are.
are part of the,
Yeah.
they haven't.
It's part of the applicants,
Yeah.
so yeah, they'd be an associated party, so we would have to consider their
Yeah, well,
amenities.
I'd do the same. I'd probably before this, to be fair, because if they're the closest ones to it, then they're the closest ones to it. And I know the ammonia levels are going to be up, but there's nothing stopping that guy losing 200 pigs in a wood. The ammonia levels will be the same, and the welfare of the pigs would be worse. You could just turn them out tomorrow out into a wood, no planning needed at all, and the ammonia would be worse. So that's why I'm going to be back in this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gareth E. Jones.
Yeah, just a quick one. The 1% level for ammonia, is that just applied to the SSI? And what's the general level of emitted ammonia levels? If it wasn't in its SSI?
So that's the critical level for the site. How do I describe this, explain this? So I suppose every SSI has a critical load in. Gregornogs has been set for 1%. I believe most are, but I think that depends on perhaps the condition of them, etc. So yeah, that's set at 1%. and everything that obviously we've seen that this development contribute 0.7%. So because that critical level has already been exceeded, I think it's 1.5, I think from memory, this then obviously it goes additional. And on top of that, we haven't considered then that cumulative impact. And I know of 2 developments myself that have been raised, but there could be further, which again, push that higher. So that's where we are in terms of the critical level.
So those 2 developments you mentioned, they haven't actually been built yet, but they're ongoing.
Ongoing, I understand. I think one might now be in operation, yes, but they were perhaps pre the NRW surveys of the Greenock SSI. So that's why I'm saying they'd be additional again to when those surveys were done.
Do you want to come back, Councillor Gareth? No, okay. Councillor Angela Davis, please.
Yeah, so this is a difficult one, isn't it? Because like other members have said here, you can understand a farming business wanting to diversify and going into a high welfare unit and food security and all the rest of that. So the only objection is because of the ammonia levels and the impact that that's having on this SSI. So the ammonia levels themselves aren't the issue, it's the impact they're having on the SSI. And if I read correctly, this particular SSI has this particular lichen that is extremely rare. So if this does affect that, that's gone, it's gone forever, isn't it? So that's, you know, that is, I mean, I'm really struggling with this one. And I get what my fellow councillors are saying there, that they're minded to let this go ahead because things might change in the future, which is a positive. But if they haven't changed in time to save that lichen, we can never reverse that, can we? So I've understood all that correctly, have I?
Yeah, so
Okay.
SSIs are all designated for a specific feature.
Yeah.
Greenock is because of this lichen.
This lichen, that is the reason.
Yeah, that is the reason, and it is obviously very sensitive to ammonia levels. Something I would say, and I appreciate the comments that have been raised, is there is our local planning policy and also planning policy Wales, which very much does, and there is even European law, which gives a lot of weight to us as a planning remit and any determining body to protect and enhance these developments. So I do just raise concern that obviously if members were likely to approve it, I would be, I suppose, cautious of that decision, given that it would directly go against the advice we received from National Resources Wales and that policy in terms of national and local guidance, really.
So is it possible if this was refused now, and if environmental changes happened as have suggested, it could be that 12 months or 2 years down the line, if ammonia levels from other things had reduced, this would pass. So refusal now isn't a refusal forever, is it? Other things could come into play.
Correct,
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
There
thank
are
you
other
very
things
much.
in place. If it was to be refused today, the applicants would have a year to resubmit on a free go anyway, so they wouldn't have to
And if
submit.
outside influences had changed
Correct.
because of things highlighted.
And we have heard that obviously there might be more mitigation that could be put in place. We heard someone talk about scrubbers. Unfortunately, it's not possible for a building type as this proposed, but there might be other methods that the applicant may wish to explore, which might, but unfortunately, based on the application, we've got to date and
we've got to look at the factors they are here now today.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hugh Williams, please.
Thank you, Chair. Well, if we're going to give any credence to SSI sites, I'm afraid we need to listen to what the planning officer has just said. I sympathise totally with what my fellow councillors have said regarding, the family nature of the farm or what have you. But if there's any credence to SSI sites, I don't think we have much of a choice, to be honest with you. But I would like clarification on something else. On the highways, do we have any highways officers there? Because it was a great, it's mentioned a good deal in the application. So if there are any highway officers there, Chair, could I ask for some just clarification? But I would recommend, and I do propose, we accept the officer's recommendation.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hugh. We have 2 excellent highway officers in today by the name of Simon Crew and Alistair Knox. I'm not sure which one of you 2 want to take this question.
Oh, I'm very sorry. Could you repeat the question?
Could you repeat what you were asking, Councillor Hugh?
Yeah, it's just clarification. There's a good bit in the application regarding the access and the narrowness of the road, and it was mentioned by public speakers. Can the highway officers give a view on that?
Yeah, the road itself is wide enough to accept HGVs. It's currently open to all vehicles, so there's no restrictions on the road to prohibit any type of larger vehicle. The applicant at the time, very early on in the application, had sent us footage of, I believe it was probably a dash cam, following an HGV in. We've looked at it. The only areas of concern that we had were the S-bends were a bit tight, so we do localised widenings on them. An additional 3 passing bays along the road. And as Jim had said earlier, originally they were going to come in off the crossroads, which would require improvement, but due to the alignment and land ownership issues, it was easier to get them to come in further down with a brand new access. And on that basis, we don't consider that there would be any serious detriment effect.
Would you like to come back, Councillor Hugh?
No, there is a reference which is not before me regarding the requirement for a neighbour to keep the hedge. I'm not doing it justice to what was in the condition or was in the main body. The hedge line was to be kept down. How can that be maintained in perpetuity? I'm sorry, I'm not done that justice. And if the highway officer doesn't understand what I'm asking, I will pass on that.
The only condition that I'm aware of that relates to a hedge is in relation to the vehicle access.
Yes.
So it's the applicant's own hedge would be positioned a metre behind the visibilities way, which then means that during the summer growth, the hedge wouldn't impede on the visibility.
Okay.
But it's not third party, it's within the applicant's control.
Okay, thank you for that. I didn't do that justice, sorry.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Hugh. Councillor Garth Pugh, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm quite surprised that this application is in front of us. It's a very small pig unit that we're looking at. It's not an intensive livestock unit. Now, I've been in this position before here in my ward where we had an intensive life and there was 2,000 pigs. And we had all these objections and all the people running scared around us. And I appreciate there's a lot of objections being put forward to this application. But when you break it all down, at the end of the day, we've got a farm. And the purpose of that farm is to produce food, like we've already heard, and it's quite important that we carry on producing food. And it appears to me that the only thing here that is standing in the way of this this application going forward is all to do with this SSSI. Now, we've heard about air scrubbers, but like I say, this is not an intensive livestock unit. It's now, if it was, yes, okay, air scrubbers, and it goes into a totally different category. This is a farmer wanting to put a building up to put pigs in on quite a small scale. We've already heard one other councillor saying that if these pigs were allowed to roam in the field, they would produce as much ammonia and whatever. So I'm quite surprised this application is in front of us. Now, if we go to page 89, and am I allowed to read it, Chair?
Yeah, briefly, yes.
Therefore, based on the submission documents available, we are unable to advise your authority that the development as proposed will not have significant adverse effect on Craigellachie SSSI. So I struggle with that one because it says we are unable to advise your authority that it won't, but they haven't categorically said that it will. So one for Gemma, where do I take that one, Gemma?
Peter will pick it up.
Yeah, we need to just double check the dates here.
Page 89, he was quite late on. I read all the manure and all the rest of it.
Was that their initial
I've got the
response?
NRW latest response.
I think that's probably as we discussed it within my report, the SSSI wasn't of concern initially during the application process. Now, unfortunately, because there was other matters ongoing, resolving highway concerns, environmental health, etc. That's when NRW had then, I think in May 21, completed further survey works on this SSSI. And that's when we then see a change in their responses since then, which then does say that obviously they do specifically object based on the SSSI. So I think that correspondence, sorry, I haven't got the dates in front of me, is the one that you're probably seeing, which was pre the change in data for that SSSI.
Okay, thank you, Gemma. But I will go back to, this is not an intensive livestock unit, and this farmer could quite easily put pig arcs all over his fields and produce as much, if not more, ammonia. And producing food is always going to produce ammonia. So it appears to me that if we do take on board NRW's response, that they have decided that producing food on agricultural land is environmentally damaging. Well, we're here in Powys, which is very much an agricultural area. Are we prepared to stop farming in Mid Wales? I'm not. I see this as a very small application of a farmer diversifying. He can have pigs, sheep, dairy. It just doesn't wash with me at all. We live in an agricultural area and we should be producing food at a time like this. And it appears to me that we're saying no because there's a lot of objectors, and it might be easier to say no than it is to say yes. I am 100% going to support this application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Gareth Pugh, but we have to remember we're guided by planning policy, and I'll hand over now to Peter Morris.
Yeah, I'm just going to come back and sort of respond to some of the points. If I missed something, come back to me by all means. I think I've got to remind members again that we've got to determine applications in accordance with the development plan. And we've got policies in the development plan that seek to protect things that are important. And we've got something here that's nationally important, which is the SSSI at Gregunnog. And we've got the environmental regulator responsible for assessing and commenting on applications, commenting that this development would be unacceptable on something that's of national importance. So whilst I'm mindful that we all need food, we haven't got a policy and plan that actually necessarily supports food production. I think that's very much a national debate that's ongoing at the moment, and that I haven't got a planning policy that I can point you to that says at all costs food provision and supply overrides a SSSI. It's just not there. So what we've got in front of us is an application that we're being told by the regulator will cause unacceptable harm to something of national interest. I've got policies in the plan that actually say if that's the case, it should be refused. So whilst I'm sympathetic, like you are, of what's happened here, in that intervening gap, we've seen NRW's policy approach on this change. We've seen other development happen or get permitted. Those issues have to be taken into account. So we're left at the position where you have to determine something in line with prevailing policy and prevailing guidance. If we don't, we're just going to leave ourselves wide open to challenge.
Absolutely. Okay, Councillor Ian McIntosh, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think a lot of what I was going to say has been said by some of the previous speakers, particularly Councillor Gareth. And I take on board very much what Peter's just said as well. But my view of this whole situation really is that we've got to try and take into account obviously the fact that we've got an ever increasing population and we do need the food, but this development plan that we're having to take into consideration in NRW's views and so on their policies, I think need to be re-looked at, because if we're in a situation now where, as has been said by Councillor Jeff, I think it was, that, you know, if this was not to go ahead, the farmer would be quite within his rights to put pigs in the field, which would actually contribute more, you know, more pollution or whatever the concerns are, ammonia. That means that obviously the policies aren't fit for purpose, because if they're going to restrict things like this, that if anything contain ammonia, and restrict it from you know, spreading more than it would if pigs were in fields, surely they should be welcoming something like this. I mean, I do think that this whole situation needs to be re-looked at, the way that NRW, you know, determine their you know, views about things like this, really. So, I mean, on that basis, I'll be very much voting in favour of this. And I think if this is contested, then that perhaps should be the opportunity to open the debate as to, you know, how NRW and other organisations are determining their decisions over things like this, and not taking the big picture into account. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'll bring Gemma in, please.
Thank you. It's been mentioned a couple of times just about this, I suppose, a fallback position in terms of pigs can be on land without needing planning permission, which is correct. What I would say to that, though, in response is, obviously, we're looking at a development here for 1,000 pigs. There is no definition of an intensive livestock unit, so we can't say whether this does or doesn't fall. So I would just like to clarify that it definitely isn't. There's just no actual definition of what intensive is under legislation. But we're dealing with a 1,000 pig unit here. If they were to be, for example, released on the land, shall we say, that would take acres and acres of land to accommodate those pigs. So we cannot, and I don't think members have got enough evidence to prove that that would have a worse impact, because of the land required to accommodate 1,000 pigs and to host those pigs would be spread over such a larger area, vast area of land, that actually that might mean a less contribution. So I do raise concerns if members are going to go on that basis. I don't think you've got sufficient evidence to go on that, because you've got to consider that actually 1,000 pigs isn't going to be accommodated on just this small parcel of land. It would have to be accommodated over a wider area. And likewise, we appreciate that there are other legislation that farmers have to comply with, COGAP, agricultural pollution regulations, etc., which actually might mean that they couldn't go ahead with that. So I do raise extreme caution going on that fallback position, because I don't think the evidence is there to say that that would have a worse impact and they can go ahead and do it. Hope that just clarifies that point.
Thank you, Gemma. Colin, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I feel I've got to come in because I'm concerned at the direction that this application is taking. And I would just refer members to your training only a few months ago, where I think I was at pains to emphasize that above everything else, you have to consider what the law says when you determine planning applications. And what the law says is that you must determine planning applications in accordance with the local plan. It's not something you can pick and choose when you feel that there's a very good case to do otherwise. I'm afraid you have to follow the law, otherwise you will be acting unlawfully. And the second point is, those members who may feel that they wish to oppose this oppose the motion to allow planning permission, have to voice, it's in the protocol, you have to voice planning reasons for doing so. And I struggle to think of any planning reasons in the face of the objection of NRW and it being contrary to our local plan. I struggle to think of any planning reasons why you could vote against this motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Colin, for that sound advice. Councillor Hugh Williams, is that a legacy hand, or are you asking to come back in?
No, it is a legacy site. Sorry, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Elwyn Vaughan, please.
Well, thank you, Chair. And as many have said, it is a very difficult application, and I have a great deal of sympathy with the applicant and the fact it's taken so long to come to this position. However, SSSIs are legal designations, and I've just checked up actually the position with them. And as Collins has stated, and I'll quote, "It is an offence for a public body to fail to minimise damage done to an SSSI, or if damage occurs, to fail to restore an SSSI to its former state. Statutory bodies have a general duty to take reasonable steps to further the conservation enhancement of the special features of SSSIs. And where statutory bodies propose to undertake or permit activities that could affect SSSI, they must consult the relevant statutory nature conservation agency. If the activity cannot be avoided, it must be undertaken in a way least damaging to that site." And the offences carry various penalties, including a fine of up to £20,000 in Magistrates Court, or unlimited fine in the Crown Court for carrying out work without permission or for causing damage to an SSSI. And the simple conclusion I come to is, unfortunately, however much we would like to see this development happening, however well-meaning everybody is, legally, I don't think we have a foot to stand on, as Colin has said, and we have little choice but to accept the recommendation.
Diolch, Councillor Elwyn. Councillor Gwynfor Thomas, please.
Thanks, Chair. But let me come back in. The debate has moved on since I spoke, and there's a couple of things which I picked up on. I actually would support the oppositor's recommendation. I wasn't speaking out against that, but I'm really uncomfortable with the situation. One, from an agricultural point of view, there's some large farms in that area, and at a stroke of a pen, any amount of them farms could change from dairy production into pig production. And that's Councillor Ian's point was very relevant, that we need to look at the overall picture on this, because this isn't fair on individual farmers who are trying to progress their lives. We don't know what's going on in that area. So when we're reaching out for consultation, sometimes we're not getting a broad picture of that consultation report back. Okay, planning reasons with this one now, where I'm uncomfortable, and where I touched on it in the beginning, this applicant applied in 2020. Let's not discuss what's happened in the thing. We're now in 2022, but he complied with the legislation when he started. But the legislation has changed. But one significant factor which has happened while his application is, and Gemma, you mentioned it, the 2 other applications have been accepted. That's what's given the ammonia overload. Are we open to challenge? Because this application was already in, and we didn't consider these other applications while this application was in. Why? Because he hasn't been able to progress his planning application in the timescale for whatever reason. And 2 other applications have got in, and I don't know the size of those applications, but that has created the ammonia overload. And now we're standing this moment in time where we have a family farm who cannot progress because it has been triggered.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be saying in a public meeting, if there's an application out there that we've just granted permission, I wouldn't be suggesting in this meeting how we tell somebody to challenge it, because I don't want the challenge. I
said, are we open for challenge?
Well, we're always open. There's a period to challenge a decision. Yeah, these were determined.
Yeah,
some
years ago applications. I don't know the exact date, but they were a couple of years ago.
Yeah, so I think we've gone beyond any challenge period for those. I think the point you've made around that background ammonia levels and the data source on that, clearly that's a national system that's in place. I think the councillor over here mentioned it. We might begin to see levels drop in time, which then may open up the door for this development again. But at the moment, the data is telling us no more. And I think it'd be really remiss of the committee to approve it, because the impact of that is on the SSSI. And that's really what's at the heart of this, that we've got policies that are there to protect the SSSI.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Gwynfor. Councillor Gareth Pugh, please.
Thank you for letting me back in, Chair. I was going to come back in after Peter Morris spoke, but you didn't invite me. But nevertheless, we heard one of the objectors say the ammonia report should be ignored. Do we take that on board and do we give that weight? Because if we give that weight, it blows this whole debate out of the water.
Well, I think. Yeah. I think the speaker was challenging the quality of the evidence that came with the application. We've still had the application reviewed by NRW, so it doesn't change that position. NRW is still objecting to this.
Do you need to come back, Councillor Gareth?
So therefore, I take it that we ignore that statement.
I think you heard the statement and can take it into consideration, but you also have to take that into consideration. You've got the environmental regulator out there that is objecting. Okay, so I know which I would give more substantial weight to. Okay.
You satisfied with that, Councillor Gareth?
Yeah, I'm satisfied with that, but I'm still not satisfied that this is not an intensive livestock unit. And as far as I'm concerned, it shouldn't even be in front of us. It's a very, very small scale pig farm diversification. So I still stand by what I say. And the evidence is showing something like 0.7% increase in ammonia. I think it's more of a thought that I don't think there's enough evidence to say that it is going to impact on the SSSI. I'm certainly going to support this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gareth E. Jones, please.
Thank you, Chair. Let me come back in. Can I just check some figures with Gemma, please? My understanding of what's been said today is the current level of ammonia and the SSSI is around 1.5. That this application is 0.7, so that makes 2.2. There's 2 schemes that are in development that are going to add, let's say 0.5. That's going to make it 2.7. So that's 270% above, well, 170% above the required level.
Yeah. Okay. Councillor Gareth Jones, Vice Chair, please.
Can you hear me, Chair?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, thank you very much. I've been trying for all the right reasons to find a way in supporting this application, but unfortunately I can't. As Colin mentioned, we are governed by policy. We have to go out and consult with the statutory consultees, and NRW have come back with their advice. I think what this is truly highlighted at the beginning of our meeting this evening, Chair, we this afternoon, this morning even, we had a great application, well presented by the applicant and their agent, and it has gained plan permission within a reasonably short period of time. However, this application seems to be in the pipeline for coming up to 2 years, and it's been going back and forward, and this highlights the need for agents and applicants to get things right at the beginning. This, more than anything, has demonstrated that. I'd also like to say, like, we've heard from several councillors here who are keen to support the application and go against officer recommendation, but I'm struggling that I don't think that we can. What we can do is that we can, the LDP review is coming up now. I believe there's a meeting now in the next couple of weeks with a joint board with Ceredigion. We as a planning committee need to have a short meeting, a working group to address these concerns and make sure we get it right in the future. But it's with a very heavy heart and a sincere apology to the applicant, Mr. Hopkins, that I propose that we do go along with officer recommendation. Diolch.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair. I will then go to Councillor Ian McIntosh as the last speaker, and then we will be looking for a seconder to this application. Okay, Councillor Ian McIntosh, please.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to come back as well. It's just a brief thing, really. I think I've been in this situation before where we have an application in front of us, and after a lengthy debate, we're sort of advised by either Colin or Peter or Gemma or whoever that, you know, we're in a position legally where we have no option. really, than going either against or in favour of whatever that application is. So my question really is, if we are being presented with applications of that nature where we really have no option, what's the point in us being here?
Peter?
Yeah, in this instance, the application was called in to planning committee. That's why it's in front of you. The reasons that applications come to committee are all set out in the council's constitution. So that's why we're here. Obviously, as officers, we're always going to put what we see as the correct professional, the right decision that complies with legislation forward. So if it hadn't come to committee, we would have probably refused this by now. Okay, it would have been refused delegated powers.
Yeah, thanks, Pete. I think you can see my point is that we've obviously been put in a position today where it's been made very clear that legally we've got to go with our officers' recommendations, and it just doesn't rest right with me that we're spending so much time debating this if we have no option other than go in a certain direction. So I'll leave it. I will still be voting in favour though. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor McIntosh. I did say that I would finish with you, but I will sneak in Councillor Angela Davis, and this is the last speaker before we put it to the vote.
I was just going to say that I would like to support Councillor Gareth Jones, and I'd like to second the officer's recommendation. As a farmer myself, I know how difficult it is to make money running a business, but at the end of the day, we are custodians of the countryside, and the countryside will be here long after we've gone, and we have a duty of care to follow all the best guidance that's out there to look after our environment and protect the species that we have here on Earth now. So I second this.
Thank you very much, Councillor Angela. I wholeheartedly support what you say there, and I wholeheartedly support what the Vice Chair had to say as well about agents making sure they get everything up front. It is put forward by officers from the council that applications should come top-loaded or forward-loaded as much as possible. This will speed up decisions when it comes to applications, and I'd just like to remind agents out there who may be listening. Okay. It has been proposed and duly seconded to go along with the officer's recommendation, which is one of refusal as set out in the update report. Those members wishing to go along with that, please indicate verbally when Carol will call your name out. Thank you.
Okay, so it's a 4 if you agree with the officer's recommendation.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So Councillor Carl Lewis.
4.
Councillor Gareth D. Jones.
4.
Councillor Tom Colbert.
Abstain.
Councillor Angela Davis.
4.
Councillor Deb Edwards.
4.
Councillor Peter James.
4.
Councillor Adrian Jones.
Abstain.
Councillor Gareth E. Jones.
4.
Councillor Karina Kenyon Wade.
4.
Councillor Ian McIntosh.
Against.
Councillor Jeff Morgan.
Against.
Councillor Gareth Pugh.
Against.
Councillor Gwynfor Thomas.
4.
Councillor Elwyn Vaughan.
4.
Councillor Hugh Williams.
4.
Yeah.
10-2.
10-2, sorry, 10-2.
2.
Yeah, so it's 10 votes for the officer's recommendation, 2 abstentions and 3 against.
Thank you, Carol. That meets with the officer's recommendation. How about we stop for a comfort break? We'll give it 10 minutes. What time are we on now? We'll come back at 12:15. If you could keep your laptops on, members. Thank you.
Yeah, I will leave now. Apologies.
Okay, members, welcome back. We will be taking a roll call now. Over to you, Carol, for the roll call, please.
Thank you. Councillor Carl Lewis.
Present.
Councillor Gareth D. Jones.
Vice Chair, Councillor D. Jones.
Oh, sorry, right, that's fine. Councillor Tom Colbert.
Councillor Tom Colbert, please. Come back to it.
Yeah, come back to him. Councillor Angela Davis. Yeah. Councillor Deb Edwards.
Present.
Councillor Highland Hume. Councillor Peter James. Councillor Adrian Jones. Councillor Gareth E. Jones.
Present.
Councillor Karina Kenyon Wade.
Present.
Councillor Ian McIntosh.
Present.
Councillor Jeff Morgan. Councillor Gareth Pugh.
Present.
Councillor Gwynfor Thomas. Councillor Elwyn Vaughan. Councillor Hugh Williams. So going back to Councillor Tom Colbert.
Councillor Tom. Councillor Tom, last call. Okay, we'll proceed with that, Councillor.
Okay, so he will not be able to take part in this next application, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Carol. On to our next application, which is 22/0415 FUL, change of use of agricultural land and building mix to agricultural along with machinery, vehicle repairs and servicing to include hard standing, associated works, part retrospective on this. This is in community at Llansillen. Taking us through this application is Keris. Over to you, Keris.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, councillors.
We've got a gremlin we need to share. I don't know. Is this at our end? Go back. Yeah, and then pick. Pick on that.
And share.
It's coming. And if you actually go down to that one. Yeah, that's it. Here we are.
There we are. Sorry about that. Good afternoon, councillors. The application before you is application 22/0415 FUL, being the change of use of agricultural land and building to mixed use of agriculture along with machinery and vehicle repairs and servicing to include hard standing and all associated works. The application site is referred to as land near to Cledrod, Llansillen, and has been submitted in part retrospect. From this slide, you see the application site is located within the community of Llansillen and is approximately 2 kilometres north of the village of Llansillen and an area designated as open countryside under the Powys Local Development Plan. The application site is in a rural area. There are a number of neighbouring residential properties. You can see there the closest to the north being approximately 80 metres and to the northeast approximately 160 metres away. From this site, the application site is located near to Cledrod and is the east of the county highway B4580. The application site comprises of a detached steel portal frame building with hardcore yard to the south and surrounded by all sides by agricultural land. The agricultural land is currently cropped to permanent pasture and grazed by livestock and is indicated as the blue line in the location plan, and it's all within control of the applicant. The block plan shows the site in a bit of a closer detail. The building and yard have the existing vehicular access off from the county highway by an existing hardcore track. And in total, the application site does extend to approximately 0.1 hectares. So that's a brief overview of the site. So now I'd like to pause here for the speakers.
Thank you very much, Gareth. We'll go to Councillor Peter Lewis for understanding for members of the public. This is Councillor Aled Davis's ward, but because Councillor Aled Davis has a prejudicial interest in our protocol, we allow a neighbouring councillor in this form. It is Councillor Peter Lewis to act as a local member. So we'll go to Councillor Peter Lewis. I believe that you're going to read a statement from Alison Gallagher afterwards. So we'll start off with your statement. You have 5 minutes and you may begin when you're ready.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you for allowing me to speak as a local member for Councillor Adelaide, who's declared an interest. It was called in, as you can see, due to concern on the highways, which I think this has been addressed, as you can see in the conditions. I believe rural businesses must be supported as they are the backbone of our rural communities in Powys, keeping working families such as David Thomas and his family in these areas. A change of use by Mr. Thomas to form such a business is very important in an area dominated by agriculture, especially in the Lancillin area, to help keep the local farming businesses going, especially at times of high demand on machinery at harvest time, which asked me to question the condition of hours of operation when there is increased demand for repairs such as harvest. Maybe screening or insulation of the building may help to keep the noise to neighbouring properties such as Troy de Rue, which has a lot of concerns about the application, which is shown on the map attached to on the northeast on the location plan, which may mitigate any noise problems to a minimum level. I do not have much else to say. The highway problems with the entrance, which were of some concerns, I believe has now been dealt with the planning conditions, and which are in the planning officer's report. And I am pleased to see the recommendation is for consent. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Peter. I believe now you have a statement to read out on behalf of Alison Gallagher. You have again 5 minutes.
Just finding out, Chair. Okay. Thank you, Chair. I was asked to speak as Alison Gallagher. I think she has emailed you, the members, with a couple of times with this report, so I'll appreciate down. She is an objector. She is writing on behalf of a mother who lives at Troy de Rue, as I said, to the northeast. It's about over 160 metres away from the application site. She's concerned for her mother, mainly the site and over the noise. But I'll break it down to what her objections are, and which some of these have been dealt with in conditions. Number one, requiring approved use to be conducted within the building to mitigate the emission of noise. 2, restricting the hours of operation to exclude weekend working. 3, prohibiting the burning of waste and materials on the site. 4, stipulating that landscaping must be provide a substantial screen between my mother's and the developer's property to both block the noise and also diminish the adverse visual impact of the development. And number 5, the use to be for the sole purpose of repairing and maintaining agricultural machinery and vehicles with no permitted change to Class B industrial use. Really, as I said, a lot of either highways, etc. And I have mentioned about the noise pollution could be dealt with to keep everybody happy on this site. As the site, Troy de Rue looks over the application site. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Alison Gallagher had to go to her brother-in-law's funeral today. That's why she could not speak. That's why I'm doing it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Peter Lewis. Before we proceed, just want to clarify with Colin Edwards. Councillor Davis does know one of the speakers or the statement that was read out by Councillor Peter Alison Gallagher, I believe. Is that correct?
She lives in my ward and I know her personally. I've not discussed this with her and I didn't know that she was representing her mother.
Right, okay.
Yeah, I think we did have a brief discussion before committee, and you explained to me the circumstances, and I'm quite happy that you're not.
In fact, she's representing her mother, who I don't know.
No.
Okay. Okay. That concludes our speakers. So, oh no, it doesn't. I've got the agent. Sorry, do apologise. Richard Corbett. Richard, are you with us?
Yeah, we're here. I've got the applicant as well.
Excellent.
Chairman, the applicant's going to speak for 1 minute and then I'll follow on after that, if that's okay with you all.
Yeah, you can split your time. You have 5 minutes and you may begin when you're ready.
Orada, thank you for allowing me to speak today. I grew up in the local area and have lived here all my life. I'm very passionate.
Can I stop you there? Can I just stop you there? We're having our own difficulty hearing you. Could you lean into the microphone on the computer if that's okay? That's brilliant. Okay, we'll start again.
Okay, bore da. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I grew up in the local area and have lived here all my life. I'm very passionate about agriculture and the rural community. We have lived on the Powys County Council holding, and my father has been served notice to leave, but we are very grateful for the roots to the area and the start it has given us. We have no wish to upset any of the neighbours, and we wish to work with the planning authority and implement the conditions proposed to make things better for them and us. The granting of planning consent will allow us to move forward with our business and to improve things for the local residents. This is a family-run business which provides a valuable asset to the local farming community. Diolch yn fawr.
And further to the comments of the local councillor, which we fully endorse, and David's comments, we'd like to continue with: the client was granted permission for an agricultural building to be used for storage of agricultural machinery and fodder. The client constructed the building in 2016, and between then and 2021, the building and land have been used purely for agricultural purposes, including the storage of hay, fodder and farm machinery. The client recently started the repairs and maintenance of machinery from the site. The machinery on the site that relates to the repair side of a business is of an agricultural nature. The client previously kept the majority of his machinery on his father's farm, the Powys County Council holding, as mentioned. However, due to family circumstances, that's no longer an option, and the client requires a secure and covered area to store his machinery. The repairs and maintenance side of a business requires the client to purchase farm machinery to fix/do up with the intention of using the machinery on his own and rented land, then selling the machinery on, allowing for a profitable business. The client also gets sent several pieces of farm machinery from local farms that require fixing or maintaining. The business the client runs is a mix of farming and maintenance work that is all agricultural in its nature, and the countryside location of this business, it is required. We're pleased to see that the officer's recommendation that the proposal is considered to be appropriate in terms of location, scale and type, and that there is not any detrimental impact on the amenities of any nearby residential properties. The report of the officer summarises that highways and noise are all concerns raised by the objectors to the scheme. The proposed development is approved by the Powys Environmental Health Officer, who supports the proposals and has no concerns over development proximity to residential properties, subject to restrictions on the hours worked, which we are happy to adhere to. The economic benefits are a material planning consideration and are a welcome investment in the local rural economy. This is a local man with a young family trying to make a living for his future, and we are very glad that Powys and Wales have policies that can support this happening. We are very happy to implement the substantial highway improvements in order to address the concerns of the local comments on the application. We are happy that members are advised that any approval should include the conditions proposed, and we are prepared to accept all of those conditions to which the planning officer has suggested with regards to hours of work and a landscaping plan, which hopefully will help to mitigate the impact on the property that has been identified. We also note the Community Council mentioned regarding a SUDS application. The SUDS application will be followed on if this application is approved. It's important to remember that the original consent for the building was prior to 2019, so one wouldn't have been required at that point. We'd like to thank the planning officer for the detail and the quality of the report, and really we believe that the proposal has a significant merit, fits within the policies of the development plan and national planning guidance, and it's respectively requested that the submitted planning application be approved as per your officer recommendation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Corbett. Thank you, Mr. Thomas. That does now conclude our speakers. I'll hand back now to Cerys to take us to her recommendation. Back to you, Cerys.
Thank you, Chair. So as addressed within the committee report, it is considered that the principle of development is acceptable on this occasion and is in compliance with policies E2 and E6 of the Powys Local Development Plan, TAN 6 and TAN 23. This is obviously subject to a review of all the wider material planning considerations. As a recap, National Planning Policy TAN 23 supports the reuse and adaptations of existing rural buildings, which the policy advises has an important role in meeting the needs of the rural areas for commercial and industrial development and tourism, sport and recreation. TAN 23 states the local planning authorities are expected to adopt a positive approach to the conversion of rural buildings for business reuse, especially those buildings located within or adjoining farming building complexes. Policy E6 of the Local Development Plan refers to barn diversification. The policy outlines that barn diversification offers the key benefits of socio-economic growth in rural communities, allowing the creation of commercial opportunities to provide rural employment that utilises existing resources. In consideration of development for barn diversification activities, consideration should be given in the first instance the reuse of the existing buildings. As prior said, this application seeks consent for the change of use of the existing building and yard space for a mixed use of agriculture along with machinery and vehicle repairs and servicing. Agricultural use of the land and building would therefore continue alongside and can change of use of representative diversification development supporting the agricultural use of the unit. From the slide, we can see the building comprises of a steel portal frame building with part concrete block and part box cladding to the sides under a cladding sheet roof. There's a roller shutter door to the south elevation and a personnel door to the side elevation. The application does not propose any alterations to the building. There is a roadside hedge, although it's a bit lower in height than the building, as there are other hedgerows and scattered trees around the site. The area of land to the south of the building proposed, which forms part of the change of use application, is typical of a hard standing yard used for storage and parking of agricultural machinery, which is commonly seen and permitted on agricultural units. In light of this, and there's no change to the exterior fabric of the building, it's considered the design of the proposal is acceptable as in accordance with the Local Development Plan policy DM13. With respect to landscape, no exterior alterations to propose the building, with the application solely related to the change of use of the permitted existing building. The parking and storage of machinery within the yard, say associated, which is on the screen slide, the left-hand side of the building, is commonly seen with agricultural units and is permitted. It is noted within the committee report that it's a recommended condition that a livestock scheme is submitted to, a landscape scheme is submitted for approval and thereafter implemented. The impact upon amenities enjoyed by neighbouring properties has been considered in accordance with relevant policy guidance. As previously said, there are neighbouring properties, residential properties to the north of being about 80 metres distance, and to the northeast, which is about 160 metres away from the site. Based on the distances from the property, the development does not raise any concerns in respect to overshadowing or privacy or overlooking. But given the nature of the use, noise is a material consideration, and it has been noted from public comments have been raised in this respect. It's felt that the application site has permitted agricultural use, which would include the use and repair of necessary agricultural equipment related to the agricultural use, and noise would be associated with this. However, Council's Environmental Protection Team have been consulted on the change of use and have not objected to the application, subject to the inclusion of a suitably worded condition on working hours, which has been included within the report. So in consideration of the application, and the Environmental Protection did not request a noise assessment and are satisfied that the recommended working hours conditions would mitigate any adverse effect on the residential amenity of the proposal. Concerns, I know your comments have been raised, as noted in the report, with regards to bonfires being lit on site. However, it is noted that this is not a material planning consideration and regulated under separate regulations, and provisions are in place for concerns to be raised with the local environmental health department. The proposed development seeks to gain vehicular access via the existing farm access track onto B4580 County Highway. The local highways authority have been consulted on the proposed developments, and following a review of all the relevant standards, have noted that subject to the inclusion of the recommended conditions, they do not raise any objection to the proposal. This is the view from the north, looking at the access down the county highway, and again a view looking at from the south. I mean, it has been noted within the main committee report that public representations have raised concerns over the potential adverse of the landscape amenity and hedgerow removal and safety, highway safety access concerns. It is acknowledged that whilst the Highways Authority have not objected to the development, the recommended conditions to secure the appropriate visibility would involve works to the existing hedgerows. As noted within the update report that's been provided to members, the applicant's agent has supplied a hedgerow translocation plan as seen on the screen, with a method statement which indicates the translocation of the existing hedgerow to facilitate the required visibility displays. The translocation of the hedgerow would not result in the loss of any hedgerow, and the submitted method statement includes appropriate aftercare measures. As such, it's considered that the development does not conflict with any policies within the local development plan. To complete the necessary hedgerow land translocation works and to secure appropriate contractors to complete the works, it is considered that extending the time period for compliance with highways conditions to 60 days would be reasonable. And in line with test for sound conditions. And in this respect, the conditions have therefore been amended as outlined within the update report. So to conclude, the key issues for the application are considered that the application is for a change of use of a rural building, and that is supported under TAN 6, TAN 23, policies E2 and ED6 of the local development plan. A proposal reuses an existing agricultural building. The local highways authority, natural resources Wales, and the environmental protection have not raised any objections to the application, obviously subject to those suitably worded conditions that were within the report. And to finish that, I think all other issues have been addressed within the reports that have been presented to you, and therefore the recommendation is one of approval, subject to those conditions that have been outlined in the updated report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cerys. We'll go over now to members for discussion. First to indicate they want to speak on this application is Councillor Elwyn Vaughan, please.
Diolch, Cadeirydd. Thank you. Thank you for the report. There's a couple of issues. There were issues in terms of highways initially. I'm pleased to see that they have been sorted out rather, and the translocation of the access hedges at the axis will facilitate that. Landscaping was another issue. I notice in condition 14 and 15 that those have been tackled and there will be suitable plans in due course, so that should resolve any concerns neighbours have on that front. And of course, the application is in accordance with policies E2, E6, TAN 6 and TAN 23, which is fairly fundamental. The only item of concern I would have is I noticed the Environmental Protection Officer recommends a time limit for opening hours, including up to 6 o'clock at night. I'm just querying the practicalities of that, especially when people are doing hay and silage early summer. And I would be minded to move the recommendation, but I would suggest that the wording needs to be slightly amended to take into the seasonality nature of the work, to allow, if a machine breaks at 6 or 7 o'clock at night, I think there needs to be a way where they can be resolved that evening, and not just have a blanket 6 o'clock cut-off point somehow, but I'm not sure how you word that accordingly.
Okay, I'll bring Peter in for this.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Vaughan. Obviously, the Environmental Health Officer was consulted on this, and they've recommended those on the basis we didn't have a noise assessment with the application. So they've sought to protect neighbouring amenity and interest properties by applying that condition. Now, yeah, I suspect you're probably right. In reality, we've heard also from the applicant that they're willing to accept that condition at the moment, as worded. So I'd be recommending that. Now, in reality, a business may want in time to operate outside those hours. If it does so, I'd be recommending that they come back and discuss that with us in time. I think we want the evidence for that, though. We'd want to understand what impact that would have. So probably at that point, we'd be looking for that noise assessment report to support any amendment or variation to those working hours. I think without that, I think we have to fall back on the hours that the environmental health officer has recommended to us. Okay.
Okay, diolch yn fawr. Thank you for that, Peter. Well, that's fair enough. I think that leaves the opportunity for the applicant should demand and the business need that in future to come back to us then. Okay, on that basis, I'll move the approval. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you.
Thank you very much, diolch yn fawr, Councillor Elwyn Vaughan. Councillor Howland Hume, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Councillor Elwyn picked up on a number of my similar concerns. I just want to clarify, is there any landscape screening to the northeast to provide some protection for Troy de Rhw?
At the present time, there isn't, but obviously there is a landscaping condition within the recommended conditions that a landscaping scheme should come in for approval within 6 months of the approval.
Okay, because from one of your images, it looked quite close, and personally, I would have liked to have seen some screening, but you know, if the plan is yet to come in, that's fine. I'll ask that you take that into consideration. I didn't quite catch what the agent said with regards to the SUDS. Can you provide some clarity on that, please, on whether this will require a SUDS or not?
I'll pick that one up, Peter.
I can have to double check. My notes might be the quickest way. Do you know, Karen, offhand? Clearly, it's outside of planning, SUDS. So being an existing building, I'm not sure. We have drainage comments, do you know offhand? Just check.
I think you said because it was constructed pre-2019, doesn't attract.
We've
Sorry,
got
Chair.
an authority on SUDS with us.
If you're happy, I'll join you. It hasn't had a SUDS application yet, and it may well require one. So obviously it's something that the SUDS team will look at as to whether it does need to go through the SAP approval process. They'll obviously factor in the fact that the building was already there as well. So they will look at that. If consent is given today, they'll pick it up and follow it through. At the moment, I can't say whether it is required. We obviously need to do the assessment to consider that, but potentially, I suspect it will. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that, Alistair.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Peter James, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just a situation, Carers, on the prevention of pollution. It's a building that's previously been there, and that is going to have a growth on usage. So the bung area, is that going to grow as well because there'll be more usage?
Sorry, what
The bung areas where they do storage of any sort of liquids or anything. So because it's already a building that's there and it's going to have a bit of change of use because they're going to use more materials, will there be a bigger area to storage of liquids or?
There hasn't been that information hasn't been proposed by the applicant. They did put through a pollution prevention plan within information that came forward with the application, which we were happy with and was acceptable with regards to potential pollution with regard to oils and things used within the building.
Because there is a small water course going through that area, and I'm just concerned that, you know, if they have got oils or anything, that they have got a big enough area to hold them in a secure area now that they're actually growing the actual business.
Well, say the pollution prevention plan that came forward and the measures that they're looking to take were deemed to be acceptable. Natural Resources Wales have been consulted on the application and haven't raised any objections to that with regard to pollution. There will be an advisory note added to the consent just to remind the applicant of their duties for that and recommendations.
Okay, Councillor Gareth Pugh, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, number 13 is the only one that raises any concerns to me. Okay, environmental have said 8 till 6 and 8 till 1 on a Saturday and a Sunday. Practically speaking, I can't see this working. Could we remove that condition or not?
Not without a study conducted, noise impact study.
Okay, so I accept then that the applicant is going to accept this today, but we must be mindful that this is going to come back in front of us, because it's not practical to work from 8 until 6 and 8 till 1 on a Saturday and a Sunday, given the nature of the business that the applicant is going to run from there. I've got conditions on my workplace, and I know what it's like to try and stay within the guidelines. So as long as you're aware that number 13 is not going to work, and I think the applicant should have extended hours. 8 till 6 to me is office hours, and that to me has been written by an office boy. In reality, in the agricultural world, and knowing that you don't know when your machinery is going to break down, and if it does break down on a Saturday morning, does that mean you can't feed your cattle till Monday because you can't repair your cattle feeder? I'm really got reservations about number 13. I know the applicant's prepared to accept it, but I'm just saying it's going to come back in front of us. So why don't we just address the situation now on condition 13?
I'll bring Peter in for some clarification, Councillor Gareth.
Yeah, if we'd have had a noise assessment report submitted with the application, we'd have the evidence in front of us to be able to maybe look at varying that or seeking compliance with that assessment report. Because we haven't got that evidence with us, we've had to take the sort of reasonable precautions here to protect the interests of neighbours from noise impacts. That's why the condition is there. Now, as I said earlier, I accept that the applicant may, in reality, want to look to vary that in due course. The applicant is listening. To do so, I would expect the evidence to come back in. It doesn't necessarily have to come back to this committee. That might be a variation of that condition that the applicant seeks. But again, to change it, we need the evidence there to support it, that we're not going to harm the noise environment locally and cause disruption and noise, okay, from this development.
Okay, Chair, I understand exactly what Peter's saying, and I accept it to a certain extent, but the residents have got protection from environmental health if it did become a noise nuisance in the future. But this is not going to work from 8 till 6 and 8 until 1 on a Saturday and Sunday.
Okay. Councillor Adrian Jones, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just got the same queries as Gareth, really, because I noticed on the report that 50% or part of the building is going to be agriculture. So does this restriction on the time mean that the applicants can't do any farming in a Saturday afternoon?
Did you get the question?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, obvious.
It's the time restrictions.
Yeah.
Now, part of this planning states that some of it's going to be agriculture. So that means farming to me, not just agriculture repair. It says part of the building is going to be agriculture repair, part of it agriculture. So if it is, how can you expect the applicant to do his farming? He can't do his farming after lunchtime on a Saturday. It will cause a confusion, because anybody who wants to complain will say, is he repairing a machine or is he actually farming? That is my query. So it's the same thing as Gareth saying, I don't think the timing thing is applicable, but I understand what you're saying about the noise abatement. Thank you.
Gemma, are you able to help, please?
Appreciate the comments raised. Just looked at the condition myself. So it does specifically state that those hours are restricted purely for machinery and vehicle repairs. So that would only apply to the commercial use. That doesn't extend to the land, shall we say. It's only the application building, and you've got the red line plan, the hard standing area around it that would be restricted. So in terms of agricultural, appreciated it's mixed use, so agricultural use that has not been restricted. So if he wants to, someone raised harvesting earlier on, so if he was putting bales there or any of those type of operations, they've obviously been considered to be of low noise concern, shall we say. So from the condition that would be acceptable. It's just the operation or machinery repairs, which typically do have a higher level of noise associated with them, that would be restricted as part of that condition. But all I can really say is echo what Pete said. They haven't provided us evidence as part of this application. So if they do want to obviously extend those, then it's for them to come to us, provide that evidence, perhaps as mentioned, put the installation in the building, etc. But before us, what we've got, we do think this condition is reasonable, given concerns raised and from environmental health officers.
Okay, fine, but you can see my point is that somebody who's complaining will not know if he's fixing the machine or actually feeding his sheep. And I can see it's just been a problem in the future. So that's all I want to say. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Angela Davis, please.
Yeah, so if I could just have some clarity. So at the moment, I assume this building is just a farm shed. So they use it for their own farming enterprise for whatever purpose is required by their own farm. So they're applying to change it for vehicle machinery repairs. If they were their own, they wouldn't need to apply for this. So they're going to run a commercial vehicle maintenance repair, a garage effectively from the site. So my question is, in its current state, you would use it intermittently over the day, over the week, over the month. But if they're going to be working a commercial business there, there'll be somebody on site permanently working. So would there not need to be some personal facilities, a toilet, sink? There's no mention of anything about that and connection to drains or anything about that.
I think it's a commercial storage area rather than a workshop, I believe. Is that correct, Gareth?
There's the commercial storage yard to the south. Some vehicle repairs will be undertaken within the building. No proposals come in for any new foul drainage. Obviously, that the Environmental Protection Officer has considered that and hasn't raised an objection in that regard. So we obviously just determine what's in front of us with regard to that.
I think it's a scenario of picking up tools, going to a farm, repair vehicles, maybe coming back to do a bit of welding. I'm not sure, but that's how it looks to me. So, okay, Councillor Gareth Pugh, you have is that a legacy hand? Yes, it is. Councillor Howland Hume, please.
Yes, just one question, further question. Why was no noise assessment report required? Can I just have clarity on that, please?
The matter was discussed with the Environmental Health Protection Officer, and it was felt in this instance that could be mitigated with those working hours conditions on the report.
And just picking up on what you said, working hours, some of the repairs will be carried out off site, of course.
If they are repairing off-site repairs, they will be off-sites, yes, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. We have a proposer, but we don't have a seconder for this application. I'm in your hands, committee.
I'll second that, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gareth Pugh. Okay, it has been proposed and duly seconded to go along with the officer's recommendation, which is one of conditional consent as set out in the update report. Those wishing to go along with that, please indicate to Carol, who will be calling your name out momentarily. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Carl Lewis.
4.
Councillor Angela Davis.
4.
Councillor Deb Edwards.
4.
Councillor Howland Hume.
4.
Councillor Peter James.
4.
Councillor Adrian Jones.
4.
Councillor Gareth E. Jones.
4.
Councillor Karina Kenyon Wade.
4.
Councillor Ian McIntosh.
4.
Councillor Jeff Morgan.
4.
Councillor Gareth Pugh.
4.
Councillor Gwynfor Thomas.
4.
Councillor Elwyn Vaughan.
4.
Councillor Hugh Williams.
4.
Chair, that's everybody in favour.
That definitely does meet with officer's recommendation. Thank you, Carol. On to our next application. I believe Rhian Griffiths is taking this. Is Rhian in, or is someone from the chamber taking the application? It's been withdrawn, but I think we need a bit of explanation behind.
Yeah, you prepared, Gemma? Yeah.
Okay. This application is 22/11/FUL, erection of 2 dwellings, including change of use, post office field adjacent to Yew Tree Barn, Llanynnog Caersus, Mr. W.W. Wainwright. It has been withdrawn, and I think Gemma will give an explanation behind that, please. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Yes, so prior to the meeting today, the applicants have chose to withdraw that application from the planning register. I think it is as a result of perhaps seeing the written officer's report. So that has been withdrawn, so it's no longer for us to consider today. We understand, though, it might be resubmitted, so it might be back before members in a different format. But no, for today, it has been withdrawn. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gemma. Okay, we need to proceed to the final application, so I'll ask Councillor Adrian Jones to vacate the chamber. Okay, members. It is application 22/1459/AGR Agricultural Notification Pierd House, Garth Mill, Montgomery. This is a application coming before us because the applicant is a county councillor. Taking us through this application is Luke Wilson. I'm over to you, Luke.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, councillors. This is a prior notification for agricultural development at Pied House, Garth Mill, for an erection of an agricultural storage building and all associated works. There's no speakers on this application. Due to the type of application, consultation is not statutorily required and therefore has not been carried out. Neither is any public consultation either. Right, onto the site location. It is within the Berriew Community Council area. Garth Mill is just to the west, or just to the east, should I say, of the site. Pied House is just here, and the agricultural shed is to be located just to the north. So there's the house and then, yeah. It is not within a development boundary and is therefore classed as within the open countryside within the LDP. The building is to be sited next to an existing livestock store, and it will be used for storage purposes of hay, fodder and such like that. Under Class A, Schedule 2 of Part 6 of the Town and Country Planning General Permitted Development Order 1995, developers are required to submit a prior notification for various agricultural developments to enable the planning authority to determine whether the prior approval of the planning authority will be required for the siting, design, external appearance of the building. In addition, the planning authority is required to determine whether the proposal would be permitted development or would not be permitted development, and as such would require full planning permission. The building will measure 36.3 meters in length, 12.8 meters in width, with a eave height of 4.27 and overall height to the ridge of 6.5 meters. Which means it'll be an overall area of 464 square meters. The shed is to be finished with box profile steel sheeting with fibre cement roof. This is the existing livestock building from the front. The new building will be erected down here at the north end, so it'll be erected down there. So it will be erected here. Pied House is located 170 meters from the proposed building. It is a listed building, and therefore consideration has been given to any effects this development will cause. Due to the distance being 170 meters and the intervening buildings as well, it is not considered that the proposed development would affect the listed building on this occasion. Again, this is Pied House. And the view here from the house and the development will be the other side of that building, so it'll be very minimal effect really. The proposed agricultural building would be located within an agricultural unit of approximately 100 hectares, within a parcel of land within the unit of more than 1 hectare in area, and would have a total floor area of approximately 464 square meters. The building is not located within 3 kilometers of an aerodrome. The site of the proposed building would be more than 25 meters from a classified highway or trunk road, and no other buildings have been constructed within 90 meters of the site within the preceding 2 years of the application being made. As a result, the proposal is deemed to meet all the criteria set out within Schedule 2, Part 6, Class A of the Town and Country Planning General Permitted Development Order 1995. It is therefore considered the proposal would constitute permitted development. Therefore, the recommendation to committee today is that planning permission is not required as the building does constitute permitted development.
Thank you very much, Luke. I'll go to Colin now because this is a application on behalf of a county councillor. I just want to go to Colin to see that the application is being processed normally. So over to you, Colin.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I can confirm that in accordance with the planning protocol, I have reviewed the planning file and can confirm that the application has been processed normally. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Colin. Okay, over to the floor. Do we have anyone wants to start off the conversation on this? Councillor Gareth Pugh, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, obviously it's already in front of us because Adrian is a county councillor. When you're ready to move it, I'll support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There's no other speakers, so I'm probably looking for a seconder on this, please. Councillor Howard Hugh. Councillor Hugh Williams, please.
No, I'm willing to support the recommendation.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hugh. As there are no other people wishing to contribute to the discussion, it has been proposed and duly seconded to go along with officer's recommendation, which is planning permission is not required. Those members wishing to go along with that, please indicate when Carol calls your name. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Carl Lewis.
4.
Councillor Tom Colbert.
4.
Councillor Angela Davis.
4.
Councillor Deb Edwards.
4.
Councillor Highland Hugh.
4.
Councillor Peter James.
4.
Councillor Gareth E. Jones.
4.
Councillor Karina Kenyon Wade.
4.
Councillor Ian McIntosh.
4.
Councillor Jeff Morgan.
4.
Councillor Gareth Pugh.
4.
Councillor Gwynfor Thomas.
4.
Councillor Elwyn Vaughan. Looks as if he's not in the meeting.
No.
Councillor Hugh Williams.
Oh,
Chair. So everybody was voting for.
Thank you very much, Carol. That meets with the officer's recommendation. Before we go to the delegated list, I think Colin wants to update us on Winhallow fish legal case.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Members will recall I gave you an update, I think, at your meeting towards the end of August, and it concerns the case of Winhallow, which was an application for an additional intensive poultry unit at Winhallow near Bilthwells, which was granted permission by this committee, by your previous committee in March this year, following which we received a challenge by judicial review. And I think I reported last time that the judge who looked at the application for judicial review at first instance on the papers did not grant permission, and felt that, I think I'm correct in saying that on all grounds there was no arguable case. The appellant, which is an organization called Fish Legal, decided to, as we say, go to the court of the High Court and request that the matter be heard in front of a judge, which is their right. So they get a second bite of the cherry in effect. And that High Court case took place earlier in August, which I think I reported to you last time. There's been a development in that the applicant, Fish Legal, have decided to exercise their legal right, and they have applied to the Court of Appeal for permission to launch this judicial review. So, having been refused it twice at the High Court stage, they've decided to proceed and apply to the Court of Appeal for permission to proceed with a judicial review application. So we're going through that process. We've received some papers. We're waiting for their main argument, following which our barrister will look at it and decide whether we need to produce a document in reply. So just to let you know, an application has been made to the Court of Appeal, and we're processing that at the moment. I'll update you as and when we get a decision from the Court of Appeal.
Thank you very much, Colin. I'd also like to welcome the portfolio holder, Councillor Jake Berman, who's at the back today. So welcome, Jake. Okay, on to item number 5, which is the delegated list. Is there any observation? Oh, sorry, Carol.
Sorry, Chair, the delegated list, we had problems yesterday adding that to the supplementary pack. It kept corrupting the pack. So I sent it out separately, but I don't think anybody could open it because of the problems with that document. So I've received one this morning, so I'll send that out to members.
Okay.
But I will add it to next agenda as well.
Okay, thank you, Carol, for that. So we'll skip that one and go on to item number 6, which is the appeal decision. Are there any observations there from members or any clarification you want? Or are you happy to receive that? No.
Yes, Chair. Thank you.
Right. Yes, Councillor Hugh Williams, please.
No, I was just happy to receive.
Oh, right, sorry.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Hugh. That brings a close to the proceedings today. So I'd like to thank all the members in the chamber, members at home, members at work, and officers today who have presented, and officers who presented online. Thank you very much, and also the press. So I'll close this meeting, but before I do, Carol, do you have the date for the next meeting, please?
Yes, Chair, the next meeting is on the 20th of October.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, I formally close this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.